have no responsibility for the current pandemic.
A great man, a brilliant person, and a true character.
All right.
I'm I believe Tucker Carlson is the single most dangerous demagogue in this country.
Okay, so one of the less publicized aspects of ALP production is that every pouch is studied individually under an electron microscope. What's at the atomic level in a pouch? You don't know until you put it right there in the electron microscope. And every ALP pouch goes through this process. So I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to remove my glasses. I do that when I do science. All right. Oh, that's unbelievable. Yeah, that's exactly what's in an ALP pouch. But you can tell if someone's lying, you know, you can sort of feel it in people. And I have lied. I'm sure I'll lie again. I don't want to lie, you know, I don't think I'm a liar. I try not to be a liar. I don't want to be a liar. I think it's like really important not to be a liar.
If it's gotten harder to evaluate what's going on, then it's presumably gotten easier for people to lie and to exaggerate, and then one should be, you know, a little bit suspicious, and that's sort of my starting bias. If it's gotten harder to evaluate what's going on, then it's presumably gotten easier for people to lie and to exaggerate, and then one should be, you know, a little bit suspicious, and that's sort of my starting bias. If it's gotten harder to evaluate what's going on, then it's presumably gotten easier for people to lie and to exaggerate, and then one should be, you know, a little bit suspicious, and that's sort of my starting bias. If it's gotten harder to evaluate what's going on, then it's presumably gotten easier for people to lie and to exaggerate, and then one should be, you know, a little bit suspicious, and that's sort of my starting bias.
My starting bias is also that social media is a trap for your mind, and there's no way through, actually. You've got to log off and delete the apps. We've got to start electing people that we trust, that are producing their own content based on their own expertise and their own experience trying to change the minds of other adults. This is the key aspect to this that I think is something that I want to bring to bear at the start of the show. Good morning, good afternoon, I guess it is. No, it's still good morning from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is JJCouey. I'm coming to you live from the back of my garage as usual. I am a mudblood American, and I'm fighting for America. And America is right now under attack. We are being subverted by people who are sustaining a narrative not just about an elaborate viral hoax of some kind or another, like a lab leak or a cover-up, but also about what happens in world affairs, who's being bombed, who's dying, where the genocides are. These are all highly controlled theater-like narratives that are only possible because of our acquiescence to the use of social media. And if we allow our children to fall under the same spell that reality is reasonably represented on our phone, and then we can get a quick overview by scrolling, we will be enslaved. Our children will be enslaved. They will grow up loving their slavery and have no idea that they're in it. The trouble is that many adults right now in the first world, in the West, are already under the spell. They already believe that social media, however flawed, is something that we're not only stuck with, but we should try to make the best of. And you'll find actually that that is the predominant message about social media. It can be damaging, but you know, if we put, I don't know, a reasonable age limit on it, maybe it'll be fine. And this is absolutely wrong because social media is not what you think it is. It's not what we've been told. It is not the outcome of some very interesting ideas that entrepreneurs have turned into apps. These are military software suites that have been rolled out into our society under the guise of private enterprise, and then regulated under the idea that, well, we can only do so much if they're private enterprise. We got to be careful, free speech and stuff. And these are all carefully controlled narratives so that the vast majority of people that are acquiescing to the use of social media, skillfully using social media, will think that their tweets or their reposts or their sharing of information is what's driving the ball forward, and that a complex decision-making process that involves voting and arguing and podcasting results in governance. And that's wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, that is wrong. We are alone in the audience. We have no effect on the script of the theater, and it is in fact a script. I think one of the best things, the smartest things I've said in the last few weeks is that if you realize that any real military plan that was designed to in some way, shape, or form preserve a long-term set of goals and strategies for a nation, those plans would have to be passed through presidencies, through Congresses, in the sense of irrespective of who was elected, these plans would need to be seamlessly passed along through these administrations. And once you understand that we have been governed that way, then you understand that you can go back quite a long time and understand that the chief executive was most likely for quite some time a permitted actor. Somebody who said what his controllers told him to say, not that dissimilar to how a newscaster says what his producers or her producers tell her to say. It's just a job. And at the highest levels of national security, at the highest levels of real politic on earth, it's pretty hard to imagine at this point that that's all left up to the willy-nilly decision of a bunch of, Americans. But that is the illusion that gets sustained by social media. It gets sustained by protesting on the street. It gets sustained by, brief 15 minutes of fame, as Andy Warhol described it. Everybody's going to get a show. And not everybody really has the expertise to have a show. Not really everybody has demonstrated the, foresight to plant trees under whose shade they will never shelter in order to, justify having a show. But instead, and this is where I would really encourage you to see how easy it is if you invert it and realize that any military industrial complex that was interested in effectively negating the strength of a republic like America, the idea would be to give everybody a show, to make it absolutely impossible for the good ideas, the strong leaders, the insightful, intergenerationally insightful leaders to never rise to the top. And if you look at social media and you see who they tell you has the most followers, it really seems like these people are the people that everybody loves. And that's just preposterous. That's just a parody. The only reason why you and those kids that live in your house or go to the school next to you believe that is because that's what social media specifically is designed to be able to do. As dark as it sounds, ladies and gentlemen, you can go all the way back to a book called Morals and Dogma: The Ancient and Accepted Right, the Southern Jurisdiction of the United States. In this book, he explains how we will provide them with their heroes that they need. And social media makes it easy for everybody to have almost a personalized set of superheroes that you root for. You don't have to choose Joe Rogan and his superpowers of conversation. You can choose somebody over here whose superpowers are their ability to, jump really high and lift lots of weights after 60. You can choose this person over here who's really into the idea that women should only compete against other women. As long as your pantheon of social media superheroes doesn't have anybody that's making any real progress in a grand sense. You know, how could we do things better as a society, but just focused on one little thing about society that they really think is most important, then there will be no priorities. It's essentially if you had, and I know this is a very scary, how do I say it, analogy to use, because these guys also use that analogy all the way back to the frickin' Egyptians, supposedly. But if every bee just decided to do whatever that bee particularly wanted to do today, the hive would never get built, the larvae would never get fed, and the honey would never get made. And right now, I think, unfortunately, what we are seeing is, there are good beehives and bad beehives. And the United States was a very good beehive for a while. It was a good idea. It was designed well. It ran well. It was designed to empower the individual bee to be a leader and to build his own hive, I guess, or contribute in his own way to the hive. And the most successful ones should win or something like that. And it shouldn't matter about religion. This is the thing that I think will help you see the most through the social media trap, is that right now it's okay to be angry in some parts of the internet about Muslims and their desire to have Sharia law. But on other parts of the internet, it's fine to be a person who's in government of the United States and talk about God all the time, pray to God, claim that you work on behalf of God, which, as I understand it as a mudblood American, is actually antithetical to everything it means to be an American. This country is a republic that was established under the principles of liberty and the pursuit of happiness and reason and logic. And so these men that are supposedly portrayed as the Christian forefathers of our nation are Christians that left their Christian country to come to the United States and establish a country that did not have a state religion. And so we now have clowns in front of us on social media on one hand that say America is a Christian country. But most of Christianity in America is represented by televangelist people on stage with $100,000 watches and flying in private jets. And, maybe the Mormons is another version of Christianity unique to North America. So it's a really strange trap that we are in, and it's full of contradictions, because the only thing you really need to do to get out is to realize and remember what America is. It is in a republic established on the rule of law, on liberty, on justice, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's not at all based on the idea that there is a God and 3 days after he died, he rose from the dead or anything like that. You're totally allowed to believe that, but, a lot of early American history also has witchcraft in it, because freedom's freedom. And the whole point is that this is the main point to realize, is that on social media, you can't find one person that will be honest and tell you that if the forefathers of America were predominantly Christian, they all agreed to get the hell away from the crown, which had a state religion, and they didn't want that. They established something different here. And I don't care how flawed it is. The point is that the trap for our mind has brought us to a place where supposedly we believe someone named Donald Trump has the wheel, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. You understand how preposterous that is, right? You have a Greyhound bus full of adults, and you have a 16-year-old sitting in the driver's seat, and we are driving toward the edge of the Grand Canyon at 60 miles an hour on an unpaved road. And all of the adults in the first 50 seats of the bus are telling everybody else on the bus that there's nothing that we can do about it because he's driving. And the idea is that the rest of us in the back of the bus are supposed to just trust the people in the front of the bus, that they're doing everything they can. They're having conversations, they're talking, they're trying to bribe them. I don't know, they're thinking about ways to trick them, but they don't have any means of actually doing much because that guy's driving. And that's just stupid. Another reason why you can see we're in very big trouble, ladies and gentlemen, is because you know by now, after following me this long, that anyone that wanted to destroy the Trump administration and bring it down as a fraud could have called me and used any part of my story at any point in time to bring down some or all of the Maha movement and discredit it as a fraud. Hell, even Paul Offit himself could have used my name and said, hey, Jonathan Couey wrote this book with him, and now he says it's bullshit. Isn't that strange? But they're not doing that. And the reason why they're not doing that is because they are part of the same show. It's easy for people on social media to say that the Democrats and the Republicans, they all have steak dinners together. They're all on the same team. But then they don't take it to the logical conclusion. And the logical conclusion is then that if they're all on the same team, then that includes Donald Trump and the Trump administration. They are not outside of that. They are an intimate part of it. If anything, that means you don't need to divide the two parties. You don't need to think of the red and the blue team anymore. You just need to think of the blue and the blue. Or in this case, I would say the black and the black, the traitor team and the other traitor team. Because they're all selling out to the same stories. They're all selling out to the same theater. And it's actually the presentation of multiple sides of the same theater that allows them to construct the social construct, build the temple that they want to build to whatever myths they want to build. The illusion of consensus. The illusion of consensus about the fact that the left and the right are on the same team is already a trap. If they're on the same team, then there is no left and right. There's just theater. It's just people on stage. And that's why sometimes they can even change teams. That's why they even say each other's lines. It's so important to see that this message is not available anywhere on the regular podcasting internet. It is only available on the independent bright web. It's only available right now from a guy in his bedroom in Boston, and a guy in his garage in Pittsburgh, and occasionally from a guy in the backwoods of New York. It's really all I can say. There's nobody else who's even remotely on the trail of what's actually going on here, because everybody else is choosing a team. Everybody else is taking someone else's word for it. That's the trick to see here. Podcasters never try to change anyone's mind. Podcasters are always trying to understand the perspective of the guest that's in front of them. They're always trying to take the word of the guest that's in front of them. Trust the witness. And this is the illusion. And this illusion will be continued to be used until we as adults are capable of getting through it. And that means really working hard. It really means giving it up. Just you got to get off. You've got to delete the apps. And that I'm not going to lead the way on X, because that's the only place that I am. I don't have a Facebook page. My wife recently started an Instagram page, but she doesn't really enjoy doing it. So I am very happy to torpedo that. We had a Substack. We have a Substack that occasionally my son puts the transcripts on for, but we also don't really, I don't care about that. I don't want that. And I might be live on YouTube right now. I guess I could scroll over here. I don't think I am. Oh yeah, I am. Maybe I am live on YouTube, but that also is just something where, let me explain it very simply. And I was talking to my friend Mark about this the other day, and the analogy came to me on the dog walk that you can think of it like the checkout aisle at the grocery store, or even the checkout aisle at Target or Kohl's. If I wanted to sell a candy, but I couldn't ever get the candy in the checkout aisle, chances are I wouldn't be very successful at selling my candy. Yeah, sure, they could put it in the candy aisle with all the other candy, but the checkout aisle is really where you want to be. And if you think about social media and how many videos, in theory, can you scroll past before you're going to click one? How many videos are really presented to you on the right on YouTube before you find one that you end up clicking on? In other words, what I'm suggesting is that the checkout aisle in YouTube, if it's completely programmed, which it most certainly is, then it's very easy for me to be putting material on YouTube and really only creating the opportunity for them to track people who follow me and find out where their IP address is. That's all I'm really doing for YouTube, because they're never going to put my candy in the checkout aisle. They're never going to recommend it for somebody. And so that's a really important thing to understand, that the way that this social media trap works is very, very simple, and it's programmed. Now, if they've also, spent a little money and hired a bunch of people to follow their scripts on social media, to focus on their little things on social media, then it's over. I think we are at a crucial moment in American history, not because it's the 250th anniversary of our country, not because it's the 10th year since I've moved back in 2016, not since we have this ridiculous president, and not since everybody apparently believes that we're at war with Iran and that the Strait of Hormuz is shut down and that the entire global oil production ecosystem is about to collapse. It's remarkable because we are actually in a place where I think we can win. I don't think they have the manpower, and I don't think they have the theatrics to run out the clock on this. It is on the time scale of a population pyramid. Yes, America's population pyramid is in trouble, but that doesn't mean that the trouble that the population pyramid is bringing is going to be here next week. And that means we still have time to wake up. It doesn't mean that we have time to have kids. It doesn't mean that we have time to have kids, but it does mean that we have time to teach our kids that having kids aren't so bad. We do have time to teach our kids that the population pyramid is going to have some trouble. The economy is going to have some trouble. We do have some time to show our children what is going to happen in America, the amount of real estate and homes and resources that are going to become available and are being snatched up now by people who are aware that this opportunity was coming is probably inestimable. That's part of the show that's happening right now. While everybody's focused on social media, people who have seen this coming are absorbing properties all across the United States, buying up farmland all across the United States. Private interests, pulled my headphones out. Weaponized piles of money of all sizes and all locations, including foreign weaponized piles of money, are taking advantage of this population pyramid collapse and all the resources and all the land and all the assets that are going to be without owners, that are going to be available. You can see it in the real estate markets of most major cities in the United States now, that LLCs are buying up houses and renting them to the highest renter. And they're not improving these houses. They're not buying them and then putting all new roofs on and replacing the gutters and, and putting a French drain around the houses and re-waterproofing the basement and putting in new windows. They are doing the minimum amount. They are painting over things. They are reassessing them because they were bought at a sale, at a sheriff's sale, because the widow went into care. And then they're renting them as if they've remodeled them and remodeled them. And this is happening all around the United States. And not one podcaster in the world, much less in the United States where it's happening, is talking about it. And that is no different than there being no podcaster who regularly just starts out and says, by the way, 750,000 Americans have been killed by opioids. And if you care about America, you should try to figure out how many years of deaths you need in order to get to 750,000. How many years do you need? Do you know? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? I think it should be a lot of years. How many Americans were killed by opioids in 2020? That number shouldn't be one of the highest numbers ever. How many Americans were killed by opioids in 2021? That number shouldn't be one of the highest numbers ever. That would be ridiculous, because if that was true, then we should have talked about it. And yet right now we have somebody who professed to be a friend of mine, that deferred to me on my own podcast as a biologist, Dr. Jayanta Bhattacharya, an Indian at the head of the NIH, who can't seem to do that very simple math, although, not to be nitpicky or anything like that, but technically he claims to be an epidemiologist. It should be right in his wheelhouse. We just had some fraud podcaster, book author resign from the FDA, who's not an American citizen, but is an associate of Robert Malone, just like Jayanta Bhattacharya is an associate of Robert Malone, just like Vinay Prasad is an associate of Robert Malone and was appointed to the FDA under Marty McCary. Again, not an American. Vinay Prasad, not a natural-born American, an Indian. It doesn't really make any sense to me unless there's a pattern here. And it is a very dangerous pattern to point out, I think, because either I'm a crazy racist conspiracy nut, or this is a real pattern. A real pattern of actors who seem to be all on the same script, that get an enormous amount of attention on certain social media platforms, while 420 odd other representatives and 100 others, or 99 other senators, do not. And no one on the left seems to be able to see through the Maha movement, except to say that we're stuck with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. because that's who got appointed. So just like Paul Offit, I guess there's nothing that we can do. And so one side says that kids are being put in danger, maybe even kids are being killed, and the other side says kids are being put in danger, maybe even being killed. And the wheel turns on social media, and both sides are entertained, both sides are aggravated, both sides are frustrated, and both sides believe. We need to forgive each other for this. But we also need to look to ourselves and understand that it doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you are on. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican or progressive or conservative or liberal or whatever it is that you use to describe yourself. Maybe you're a moderate conservative communist. I don't know. I heard that used on a podcast the other day. I'm not kidding you. But whatever you are, you have to understand that if you are using social media in any way to try and understand what's going on in the world, chances are very good you understand nothing. And the only reason why I'm able to claim that, and I think claim it with some credibility, is because I have actually been paid to consult for these people. They actually tried their magic on me. And that's why I'm writing a book about it. That's why I'm teaching a course about it, because they tried this magic on me. And they've tried it often. They are spellcasters, ladies and gentlemen, and the spell that they cast is groups of people lying to you. It doesn't have to be 3 hot girls. It could be a mechanic and a lawyer and 3 people in a call center that are all on the same script in a signal chat. And their names could say Ryan Cole and Geert Vandenbosch, and then, I don't know, Conspiracy Night, and Rogan Fan 420, and something else. And that conversation that you have on Signal could be only for you. Could be 2 chat bots and 1 Indian guy in a room that's only there to waste your time, to only there to tell you to chase other things, to do other things instead of, I don't know, work on your marriage. I want you to imagine if they took 20 people in a room and gave them social media accounts and tried to ruin your life by distraction and whispers and flattery, because that's all they do. They put podcasters on the internet, and anybody that's actually trying to make progress gets assaulted. First, they offer you a spot on stage and give you a script and tell you to say it, and if you don't say it, they take you off stage. And then they do this. I guess I've already ruined the beginning of this show, so we'll just start it all over here. But this message is so very different than anything else you will see on the internet, save one guy's show, which is Mark Kulak, because only Mark Kulak understands what has been accomplished. What has been accomplished is that both sides in America and a lot of people around the world, including my brother-in-law, for example, believe that the Jews control the world, and it goes back to the Rothschilds. And they hold that thought in their head while they also believe that the Epstein files are real and that a lot of these people were taken to an island and participated in things, but also had their photograph taken. So that means that once they participated, or even, I guess, went there and just had a drink, that they're already screwed. And so then they just have to do what they're told. It's all a big joke, ladies and gentlemen. It's all a big joke, even if there are rooms full of Israeli soldiers that are working on social media. The bottom line is the math is very, very simple. If Israel has 1 million 20-year-old cyber warriors on computers with apps, India can have 200 million. And so who's going to win on social media? And I'm arguing right now that the only way you can game social media besides programming is brute force. The sheer number of people that you can use, the sheer number of accounts that you can man. And the more that are manned by actual people clicking, the more it is possible to create an illusion. And it isn't in Africa that they can find these people. It isn't in Russia that they find these people. It isn't in Israel that they find these people. It is in India. They want you to believe it's in China, but it's not. It's just not. We attacked China with the one-child policy from Kissinger, and we did not attack India. And there's a reason. And I think it's because the British Crown, the British Empire, was never able to break into China. They were totally able to break into India. They were very present in India. For goodness sakes, polo was invented in India. It's a real game that the British now consider to be the game of kings. It's an Indian game. There were men's clubs all across India, not all across southern China. There are no Masons' lodges in China because of the British colonization. Understand that. And every one of these people that is sabotaging America has loyalties outside of America, loyalties to piles of money and seats of power that are older than the United States. That's why we have Armenians on the stage. That's why we have fake Jewish people on stage that are parading themselves around as Jews or not as Jews. It's all the same. It's a theater. A look at me kind of theater. And the only people who don't say, look at me, Who? Who doesn't say that? And now you see it's a theater. None of these people are doing real work. None of these people are making real progress. America needs to wake up now. This summer, we are going to wake up day by day. These people will continue to discredit themselves, specifically by not making any progress. And they will discredit themselves as one theater. And the people that will do it the best are the lowest on the totem pole. The ones not Tucker Carlson. It's Tucker Carlson's amplification of and taking seriously of the little players that makes the big players discredited. And so if you want to discredit Tucker Carlson and all the people on his level, all you have to do is show how they so graciously and aggressively promote the people below them. People that they should never be promoting. There's no reason to promote. These are all spellcasters, ladies and gentlemen. This message is supported by 98 human beings in various ways. You can go to GigaOhmBiological.com and find a way to support. Some people are just on a monthly thing where they just send my family money, and it is fantastic in the sense of this is what keeps it going. We are right now looking at a funded course in the sense of one of my supporters has volunteered to pay for the location, and so although my family already paid for the location, I now can tell you that has been reimbursed by a viewer. So shout out to that guy. He knows who he is. I'm not sure if he wants me to say his name, so I won't. And that was very gracious. That, of course, is something that we needed. It also took the pressure off a little bit. It allowed me to feel very comfortable working very hard on the reading part of this, and it's just a lot of it's a lot of books that I got for myself that under the hunch that they would be useful, and they are, but that means that there's a lot of things that on a list of books I still have to complete. I'm not trying to suggest to you that I'm going to be able to successfully, let's say, synthesize all of these books into a course over 2 days, but rather I want to be aware of the ideas that are presented there so that as much as possible, I don't portray the ideas in the course as something that I've pulled out of a hat, but instead something that I'm reassembling and reorganizing ideas that are, have sort of fallen to the wayside or never even gained much prominence because, again, there is a concerted effort to keep things super simple. And that concerted effort to keep things super simple is also how they can entrap you in these super simple mythologies. And I think that's the key thing to understand here. Again, I have a website, GigaOhmBiological.com. If you want to get notified, you can send an email to gigaohmhq@proton.me, and my wife will send you a mail. It won't always be right because sometimes I say I'm going to do it and then, I don't know, we get a leak and we have to wait for the plumber, or I don't know what else gets in the way. But right now, my first and foremost focus is trying to make progress toward August being the most successful little course that I've ever done. And so, sometimes I get distracted because I start working on something and then I keep working on it, and then the afternoon's gone and I can't stream. And so I'm going to try and get better at that over the next couple days and weeks. And anybody that's been here long knows that I've been trying to do that for a while, but it is hard. And I won't say I give a lot of credit to these people, but if you do a podcast and you don't get any money from it, it's hard for me to imagine, you don't have any sponsors or anything like that. It's hard for me to imagine how people are able to regularly hit the same time night after night. Now, if somebody was paying me to stream from 10:10 to 12:10 every day, I would hit that, right? But I don't know. I don't see how these people are doing it other than it's their full-time job. And this is not my full-time job. I can't. We need to pay rent. So anyway, long story short, We are putting out our own website. We are maintaining our own archive. And so if you want to watch this offline or afterward, you can go to gigaohmbiological.com. You can find the link to stream.gigaohm.bio. You can even use the app on some of your devices, and it will work really well. If it does work on your device, it'll work really well. There will be no ads and no personal data shared. And we are 44 minutes into a stream. Now we're going to start.
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm and change the whole planet.
Then, but that's kind of a different trajectory, right? Like Tucker Carlson, he's just himself now. Like Tucker is just doing what he thinks is best. And himself is built from his whole life story, from his CIA dad, from his like WASP upbringing, from his like, you know, he's built from an establishment pedigree. And he was an establishment person and figure. He was built by Fox News for so long, but then he exited and now is establishing just Tucker.
Here's one of these really low on the totem pole clowns that rose very quickly during pandemic times, and it was a little unexplainable. This guy actually rose on TikTok. Now, having him defend Tucker as a normal guy who was an establishment dude who's now just doing Tucker is kind of remarkable. It's kind of remarkable because he will also defend himself in the same way that he had a kitchen job and then he just kind of got lucky and did a good job at podcasting. And so, you know, he made it. He's got 700,000 followers and now I guess, all's good. Whereas Mark Kulak has been doing pretty substantial, steady work on YouTube for 6-8 years, and his growth is kind of like this, slightly down like that, which is strange, right? Because there's a lot of examples that we've found in the past few weeks of people that have a pretty much an exponential rise in their following, even though they have no expertise to bring to bear. He admits that he was working in a kitchen. That's not, like a successful entrepreneur or a CEO that goes on a podcast now. We are talking about a guy with a kitchen job who decided to start, I guess, TikToking. And then, I didn't even know what happened. And that's how you can see it. It doesn't take very much for them to distribute some equipment and give some, tips on how to do it. Even worse, it doesn't take them very much to find a bunch of people who are already doing it and encourage them a little bit. That's how they do it. But it's not blackmail. He's not being blackmailed to do this. He has been tricked into doing it. And what you are going to see, if we are successful, what you are going to see is every one of these imposters is going to tell you that they had no idea how they got here. They have no idea. They were just minding their own business. They know everybody, but they just I used to work with, but I was just minding my own business and now I'm here. None of these people have a legitimate origin story that starts with, I had a 20-year career as a university professor and then I was making a YouTube videos because I wanted to try and get brownie points with my faculty, and I made a YouTube video about coronavirus, and the next thing I knew, my faculty was telling me not to come in anymore. None of these people have that story about anything. Nothing. Funny thing is, Mark Kulak kind of has a story like that happened before the pandemic and involved George Webb. But he's the only other guy I know that kind of has a story that makes sense for why they decided to start doing YouTube, despite the fact that, most people don't make a living doing YouTube. Not everybody can be Casey Neistat. And yet somehow or another, Ian Carroll can be. Somehow or another, Dr. Drew can be. Somehow or another, Doc Malik can be. Somehow or another, Joe Rogan can get a contract for more than $250 million as a podcaster. Because I guess ad sales, they work great. As if everybody is joining Spotify so that they can get the exclusive availability rights of, Joe Rogan the day it comes out, as opposed to the hundreds and hundreds of millions of hours of music that's available. Oh my gosh, ladies and gentlemen, America can snap out of this in a heartbeat, but both sides have to realize that they have been victimized by a collective show of traitors that have their allegiances outside of the United States, that take their direction from powers outside of the United States, weaponized piles of money larger than the deficit of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a joke. This is a game for all the marbles. And right now, a lot of the marbles are the land and resources of America, and who gets them, whose they are, and more importantly, whose grandchildren is going to inherit the wealth from extracting them.
Again. But I'm not like that, which is unique, and it's fun, and it's interesting. And I'm obviously not anywhere near as big as either of those two guys.
I don't care how you get there. I don't care what you do to get there. The goal is to win.
What time is it?
Game time! Boom!
I think it's time, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's really time that we made a comeback of sorts. Gigaohm Biological has been taking a lot of time in between shows in order to prepare for a course in August. And a lot of that preparation is reading. But in the meantime, most of you have been running the rat race. It's not summertime yet, so still taking the kids to school, still doing all the schedules, still showing up for the boss, still not getting enough sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to help you stay focused on the biology. I want to help you not take the bait on social media. I want to help you love your neighbor. And so that means I think I'm going to have to put out a few more hours per week in order to make sure that you don't have any options of going on social media. I think that's really the trick. There's only one chance, ladies and gentlemen. Brian, hold on a minute. Brian.
The word autism. He was vaccine damaged. He was neurologically damaged.
I know.
A condition that we will not call autism. I don't like the word autism. He was vaccine damaged.
Man, Brian, I really, sorry. Sometimes he calls in and he just really wants to remind you that autism spectrum disorder is a myth used to make sure that intramuscular injection is never questioned as a methodology, virology is never questioned as a science, and public health is never questioned as a reason. Actually, gain of function and pandemics are myths that are used to do the same thing. And, that it's pretty simple, actually. Isn't it remarkable that after all these years, you can only find one podcast on the internet? And this is, sorry about that, this is not a podcast. You can only find one show on the internet that has a message even remotely close to this. And that would be Housatonic ITS, Housatonic Live. Other than that, it's just me. It's just Dr. J in the back of his garage at GigaOhmBiological.com that's trying to explain to you that mice die in traps because they don't understand why the cheese is free, and that the cheese is free on social media. Gigaohm Biological is the biology they ignore, and they're not going to show up for the course, although I would be happy if they did. Feel free to distribute the information to them so that if they can and want to, they do show up. Once again, shout out to Housatonic Live, Mark Kulak in Boston, Massachusetts. Shout out to him. and his own PeerTube. This guy is really on top of this in a way that no one else has been. I got to credit Mark with that. Mark is the guy who really made it possible for me to see that Piper Stover and her role in this, and he made it possible for me to see beyond Robert Malone to a bigger picture, even though I think Robert Malone is one of the most wonderful threads to pull. You got to pull that thread in the right way. You got to understand his long connection to Indoburma and India. You got to understand his connection to horses and polo. You got to understand his connection to the crown and to England. You have to understand his connections to the intellectual property of transfection and transformation. You have to understand his relationship to not Americans and American institutions, but to the WHO and to the UN and to international pharmaco conglomerates. Stay focused on the biology. Don't take the bait on social media, and love your neighbor. That's how you're here. Ladies and gentlemen, the voice that you are listening to is that of Jonathan Couey. This is my resume. I have a Substack that disappeared called Woodhouse 76, written by one of my biggest fans in Chicago, who's now taken to blocking me, and I think she's starting her own YouTube channel again, but it's just old videos. I used to be a colleague and sort of taco party buddy of Jayanta Bhattacharya, who I met courtesy of the Broken Science Initiative and Greg Glassman of CrossFit. It turns out that was all an elaborate ploy to get me to shut up about Robert Malone and his scripting of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and of Jayanta Bhattacharya of Children's Health Defense. I actually think it's possible that Children's Health Defense is an elaborate front group that's largely funded by India, even if India is just a proxy for somebody else. And I think that would explain why the sister publisher, Skyhorse Publishing, is also publishing the books of Shahid Tharoor, for example, the former UN secretary or assistant secretary. That's why they are also publishing books for the Jackson family. That's why they publish all of these books for all of these frauds, including, you know, the more, and again, I would stress that the more, what is the right word for obscure? There we go. What's the right word for obscure? The right word for obscure is obscure. The more obscure anti-vaxxers like James Lyons Weiler, who I actually think are much more guilty, in the sense of James Lyons Weiler has never had a useful idea of his own ever. And in fact, I think he's one of the central clowns that was put in place early when Tony Bark and Brandy Vaughn were still alive, in a vain attempt to try and overwhelm them with authority and with expertise so that they would doubt what they were saying, or maybe adopt what these people were saying instead. Like, I don't know, autism is a complex, set of environmental and genetic factors, instead of, teaching the difference between intramuscular injection and subcutaneous injection and oral application of medicine, for example, which Brandy Vaughn almost managed to get to, but not quite. She was just doing injection versus ingestion. But Gigaohm Biological has taken it one farther, and we're actually saying that all injections aren't the same, dumbass. And actually, intramuscular injection is extremely dumb, and there's no biological basis for using it as a way of injecting a combination of substances intended to augment a healthy human. That's just ridiculous. And I've tried to change the minds of all of these people about that particular idea, as well as the idea that RNA might be able to, free range around the world and go endemic. That's also a preposterous idea. The biology isn't there for that. And so I think on these very small but large, like monumental ideas, these explosive ideas, these people have run for the hills. And it is a unique moment in American history because this is our chance to pull our heads out. He's still in government. This imposter is still in government. These frauds of the health freedom movement are still doing conferences. That means people can show up and can ask them to explain why they haven't made any progress since they were on stage with Brandy Vaughn. And Brandy Vaughn explained that there was a tremendous difference biologically between injecting something and ingesting something. And why you can eat a hell of a lot more poison than you can inject. It's really pretty remarkable, ladies and gentlemen, that this is where we are. It's actually such a fragile place. It's such a fragile place that I think we can win. And I haven't felt like this since like 2020, when I thought the pandemic might end in a year and that it might be a lab leak. I haven't felt this positive in years. And I feel this positive because James Lyons Weiler discredits Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and discredits his timeline. And more importantly, Sasha Latipova discredits their timeline. More importantly, Kevin McKernan discredits their timeline. More importantly, Aaron Seary discredits their timeline. Steve Bannon discredits their timeline. In fact, these people work in synergy as one collapsing theater of the macabre. It is collapsing now like a house of cards. It doesn't matter in a house of cards which card you pull. And indeed, in this theater of imposters, on a script they could never sustain, could be exposed in a matter of weeks if we could find somebody with the reach and the patriotism required to expose it. Understand how dark I am portraying this. Just one person needs to realize that I could discredit Jayanta Bhattacharya. That actually my own podcast recording of Jayanta Bhattacharya discredits Jayanta Bhattacharya. But if I were to testify about what he said to me in person over these many meetings that I've had with him, that would discredit Jayanta Bhattacharya. If I was to explain and testify what I have talked to with this man and his staff about during the writing of this book, then that would discredit Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as a fraud. And I could do the same to Brian Hooker and to Mary Holland and to Polly Tommy and to Andrew Wakefield. But they won't do it. In fact, you could even see it this way. They could steal my ideas, steal my words, and destroy these people, discredit them, and win. But they're not doing it. Why aren't they doing it? Why isn't there one person who's doing it? And then you see that it's not just the sabotage of conservative America. It's the sabotage of progressive America, too. It's the sabotage of everything that it means to be an American through parody. I have 2 YouTube channels that are not canceled yet, and I do think I'm live on JC on a Bike right now. I don't know what to say other than I'm going to keep fighting. I think you should keep fighting, and that this resume of mine is absolutely unmatched. There's nobody that's worked harder than me to try and change their minds, to give everybody the benefit of the doubt until they listen. You know, if you talk to somebody about something that you're pretty sure you're right about, they don't have to know it right away. But once you explain it to them, they should kind of accept it, right? These people don't do that. That's not how they work. You can't change their script. You can't hand Jimmy Dore a book and say, dude, I thought all these people were real, but actually I figured out that they're not, and I need your help. And expect him to go, oh, wow, really? No way. But isn't that what a conspiracy theorist would most likely do? If I handed that book to Joe Rogan and said, dude, you're not going to believe it, but this book is fraudulent. It's fake, and they paid me to do it. They wanted me to be the lab leak expert, but actually there's no way there can be a lab leak. Would Joe Rogan be like, wow, I got to have you on my show right now. We need to do an emergency podcast like we did with Brett Weinstein in 2021. of course that would not happen. Just like it didn't happen with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. when he was going to put me on his podcast after I sent him an email about how I could explain how it was impossible for there to be a pandemic, that they lied about a background signal with a non-specific PCR test, and if they wanted to find something, all they would have to do is put it there. And he wanted to do an emergency podcast and have me explain it to the world, and then one day or 2 days before the podcast, I was told that it was going to be me, and I had to present it really quick to Meryl Nass and Robert Malone and Jessica Rose, and then they would talk about it. I wish I could make this up, ladies and gentlemen, but I can't. I met Whitney Webb at the inaugural CHD conference, not at the conspiracy theory meeting at in Las Vegas or I don't know, the tinfoil hat convention in Boston. I met her at the CHD inaugural the first time CHD ever put on a conference. They had Whitney Webb speak. They had Robert Malone present. I don't know what to say, ladies and gentlemen, but it's so easy now. You can forgive your conservative friends and neighbors, and you can actually rescue them. More importantly, you can stop being an idiot and pretending that, America is out of our control when America's been out of our control for quite some time, and Donald Trump is not any worse than Joe Biden and any worse than Donald Trump and any worse than Barack Obama was. Because they all do the same thing when they go in front of the camera. They perpetuate myths that allow them to govern us with no worries, no risks. And social media has enabled this to be done more powerfully and more effectively than ever. And it's the first world that's being enslaved by this. Look at social media in India versus social media in China and see which system we should think is more likely cooperating with the American system of social media that, we have no control over because it's just a private thing. We got to have free speech and stuff and entrepreneurs and stuff like that. You can see through it, ladies and gentlemen. And these people, all of these little mealy-mouthed people like Asim Malhotra, who's so sure about stuff, and Ryan Cole, who's so sure about stuff, and this guy who's still podcasting, unbelievably still podcasting. This is the best way to see the liars, because this clown is associated with all of them, because these fake early treatment COVID people are all associated with these fake anti-vaxxers that go all the way back to Andrew Wakefield, are all associated with them. Lee Min-Yan was on stage with Steve Bannon, and Steve Bannon wanted her to run for Senate. Somebody's doing a roof across the back of the backyard there. It's really important, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to get this out to some independent journalists somewhere outside of the United States. If this could get into a Dutch newspaper, if this could get into a German newspaper or something like that, where there is a biologist who was hired by the Health and Human Services Secretary before he was appointed to write a book, that he tried to alert the writers of the book that there is no pandemics, they can't happen, but they could lie about it, and this is how, and they didn't put it in the book, that they fired me for talking about Robert Malone. CHD fired me for talking about Robert Malone on my podcast in December of 2023. I effectively had no income as of January 1st, 2024, and I haven't been at the mercy of my supporters ever since. And it was both times. It was only because of Robert Malone. Jayanta Bhattacharya asked me specifically 3 times the last time I met him at a Broken Science meeting to stop talking about Robert Malone. Stop naming names, but specifically you could stop saying Robert Malone's name. It's very easy, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter if it's not about Donald Trump. Donald Trump plays a role. Where he is where he is, right? He's just there. It's like the guy in the Chuck E. Cheese outfit. The Chuck E. Cheese outfit guy doesn't always have to be at the door. He doesn't always have to be at the birthday party. In fact, the Chuck E. Cheese guy could be down the street at McDonald's. He's just the Chuck E. Cheese guy. And as long as the Chuck E. Cheese guy is around, I guess the restaurant is real. If everybody agrees that the restaurant ain't bad for birthday parties, I guess that's true. And that's the Chuck E. Cheese guy. Donald Trump is the president, which is basically just the Chuck E. Cheese guy. You get to wear the mouse outfit this year while everybody else works. The pizza's still being made in the back. Doesn't matter who they hire in the outfit. That's how the national security state really works. And it's worked that way, I think, for quite some time. It's not necessarily bad or good. But once it's out of our control, it's very bad. Once there are not patriots driving the car anymore, but, people that are loyal to other weaponized piles of money, older weaponized piles of money than the United States, maybe even weaponized piles of money that have very old vendettas against the United States as a concept or an idea. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? Not for me. And I've seen it on X. I know how X works now. That's why I feel comfortable staying there. I can use it as a way of kind of a barometer of what people are up to and how they're doing. I've spent a lot of time muting a lot of people. I've spent a lot of time blocking a lot of people, although I haven't blocked very many besides Elon Musk. I block a lot of ads. And that's paid off, actually, because those ads don't come back. It's annoying because it's a lot of clicking. But in the end, I think that this is the best example, the best evidence, some of the best evidence for the fact that I have actually tried to change people's minds about very simple things and call people out that they do not say things very simply. Instead, they say what they are told to say, which is that there was a novel virus that killed millions of people, but millions more were saved by something. Could have been saved by ivermectin if they wouldn't have put it on, controlled it or lied about it. Ivermectin would have saved many more millions of people. And that lie, I think Mark Kulak is right about that lie. I think they're poisoning a specific demographic in America with that lie. And that it's kind of scary. Because if these people who are pushing ivermectin actually believe it's the wonder drug that it is, it should be one of their priority messages every day. Just like if you think that the vaccine schedule is killing babies or injuring babies or causing autism, then it should be something that you say every day. Just like if you think that the opioid crisis killed a significant number of Americans, you should probably mention it on a lot of podcasts like I do, like Mark does. And I don't think that I need to have lost a son to that epidemic like Mark did in order to say something about it, because the number of Americans is what's significant. I don't need to lose a son to drunk driving to think that drunk driving is something that, is a significant problem in our country. And if I think that drunk driving is a significant problem in our country relative to, other things, then I should probably talk about it regularly. But podcasters do not do that. And that's how you can see that they are not real. And we have to stop following people that are not real. We have to stop listening to people that are not actually thinking. This is so paramount to our ability to break free, to our ability to take back our country, to realize that America is full of mud-blooded Americans, and the mud-blooded Americans are the ones that need to take this country back. A no-race society, like Joshua Lederberg envisioned, not a multiracial society, but a no-race society. What race are my children now? They have no race. And that's the point. Biology will set us free, ladies and gentlemen. I'm quite certain of that. I am absolutely quite certain of that. And that's why I'm teaching a course in August 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Will be a party. 250 Years of American Biology 101. I have a link on my website. It always goes to the same place now where you can either register for being there in person, which is a limited number, or register for the live link. And do not feel the obligation to buy the live link unless you actually want to support the course, because I will distribute a live link and the videos will eventually be available. It's really just a way for you to participate in the development and the execution of the course, and all of these people will get credit. You know, it's a huge undertaking for me, but it's also a huge amount of trust and belief in the people that are supporting this. And so, yikes, what is this nonsense? And so I'm just so grateful to all these people that are so excited, because I do think you have a reason to be excited. It's going to be good. But more importantly, it makes me feel very good about dedicating the amount of time and energy that we are dedicating to it. It's on my mind 24/7 all the time, to the detriment of my relationship with my kids and my wife. I think this is one of the last windows of opportunity that American society has to wake up to how we have been manipulated and used, kept comfortable and happy, while these people have been working in the background. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just something to come to realize and act upon. And if you find me running for local office in a couple years, don't be surprised, because I think that's one of the few ways that we will get out of this, by actually having real people take leadership positions again, maybe even begrudgingly. In other words, I think our best leaders are people that will be put there by their peers, rather than be put there by themselves, looking in the mirror saying, you know, I could be president of the United States. I don't think we need a person like that. I think we need people that are there because they've done other things. And one of the things that I will have done at some point in time will have demonstrated that there is a better model for Biology 101, a better way of teaching Biology 101, that will not allow us to be bamboozled about it. And because of the pandemic, and because of previously being taught a poor version of Biology 101, all of us were vulnerable to the pandemic. All of us were vulnerable to the bamboozlement that occurred during the pandemic, and many of us are still under that spell. But by relearning a basic biology, wherein pandemics don't even make any sense, and crystal clear don't make any sense, then people will be able to pull themselves out without the pain of extricating themselves, you know, like in disbelief. They will come to the conclusion on their own. That's really the hope that I have for this course and for this presentation, is that by presenting the history of biology and the history of these ideas, it will become very clear that a lot of the certainty under whose spell we are under is non-existent. And instead, the certainty is used to bend resources and to bend the aims and goals of society toward things that may not even be real. And I would go so far as to say, for example, if they wanted to spend a lot of money on interstellar travel, one of the ways they might do it is to convince everybody that the Earth was dying and that we had to develop rockets And I'm not saying they're doing that, but I'm just trying to suggest to you what was done already when we were kids. Was a set of goals was established by the national security state, and those goals necessarily required society to be on board, to have the right momentum, and to put its resources in the right places. And I am going to, I think, be able to successfully suggest that a false narrative of Biology 101 was put in place in universities and in schools so that a set of national security priorities could be pursued, even though a lot of them are essentially antithetical to a lot of what American law and American tradition establishes as okay. I don't know if I can say it any better because I'm just kind of talking off the cuff here. But that's why this class needs to be taught. This course needs to be taught, and maybe it needs to be taught several times, and it probably will be in several iterations as other scholars pick up where I left off or fill in the holes. This is going to be a work in progress, but it's going to be a work in progress that I think can motivate younger people to take the reins, younger people to take it forward and pass it on to kids, because that's what we need to do. We need to get kids off of social media. We need to get kids to understand the spell that adults are under. And we need to get the kids to pull the adults out. That's the way forward, because then the kids are the heroes. The kids are the ones that bring their adults back. Other adults aren't going to bring other adults back. But if kids could show adults the folly of social media and show what they have accomplished with it, while at the same time encouraging their parents not to believe in it anymore. Wow, what a magical place this would be, huh? I've got big plans, big dreams, but that's the only way this is going to happen. And how it works is that people share this stream, they share the links, and they encourage people with real emails and real text messages. And maybe even they give them a phone call and say, you know what? I think it's time for you to watch this guy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania named JJCouey. I think he's got it right. He wants to bring America together in the right way. And we need to forgive each other for having fallen for it, because it was the most magical, all-encompassing military exercise ever. But if you think of it like a military exercise, the temptation is to blame it on the U.S. military. But I think that is a huge mistake, if only because the U.S. military would never do it. Even if the U.S. military wanted to do it, they wouldn't use the U.S. military to do it. They would contract it out. And so I think it's going to be more and more likely that the national security state would even contract it out to other countries, other allies. And then those allies would provide the companies and front groups to accomplish the things that the U.S. military wanted. And then even more importantly, they would be having this, plausible deniability. They would have a separate security state to work through. And so what I think is happening is that India effectively serves as a proxy lapdog for United States traders to interact with the Commonwealth of Nations, and also to interact with UN actors and to interact with Vatican actors, or maybe not Vatican actors, but any actors associated with the City of London and the former East India Company, and these large, old, weaponized piles of money of the British Empire had many, many, many of their roots in India. And that never really stopped. And I think that's where we are, and that's the difference between China and India. And I think in a lot of ways, Mark might be right about that too, that China has a pretty long track record of not being global dickheads. India does too. But right now, if you look at the population pyramids of these countries, which I think is the most important biological data to look at with regard to thinking about intergenerational forces. If a country has 1,000 20-year-olds and another country has 10 million 20-year-olds, it's pretty easy to see whose GDP is going to be higher in the future. if, there's not a lot of math to do there. And unfortunately for us right now, the math is that India's got a lot of 20-year-olds, a lot more than a lot of other countries. And so it's a question of, what would you do in the world of real politics if that was the case? And I think it's a primary thing that most of these people look at, most of these overclass people are looking at, is the population pyramid and sculpting it to their needs. The United States was effectively neutralized by a 20-year campaign to get people to feel, shitty about having kids. And as a result, our population pyramid is about to collapse. The size of our economy is going to change rapidly. The same is true for China, but the same is not true for India. And the people that are running this show understand that to a T. And they have told us a story that Israel is doing it, that the Epstein class is doing it. And it's not. It's brute force control of social media and opinion by the manufacture of an illusion of consensus about anything they want, including the idea that Israel controls everything. We are in a very strange place, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what to say. It's a little bit like being on the Star Trek Enterprise set at this stage. That's what podcasters are. And so you can't change Captain Kirk's script. You can't change what he's going to say. You can't change how he's going to get mad and then fail and then succeed. And you can't tell him when he should leave the room here because he's on a script. And all podcasters are on scripts. This guy's on a script. Listen to his script.
From Microbe TV, this is Beyond the Noise, episode number 100.
Sorry.
106, recorded on May 4th, 2026. I'm Vincent Racaniello, and joining me today is your host, Dr. Paul Offit.
Hi, Vincent.
This is Beyond the Noise, which is the video version of Paul's column over on Substack, called appropriately Beyond the Noise, cutting to the chase on important health topics. Today we will take a closer look at Paul's column called Collateral Damage. So according to the column, recently a pediatrician posted a video on Instagram about her frustration with her practice. What was this all about, Paul?
Right, so she posted on Instagram a 3-minute video. Her name is Dr. Megan Pryor, a pediatrician, just expressing her frustration with having to deal with all of the questions parents are asking about vaccines.
Being a pediatrician has changed. Like, my job feels different. And today I spent so much more time counseling people on vaccines than I have done in like the past decade.
And she certainly understood how people would have questions. I think she understands that people don't see the infectious diseases that vaccines are preventing, not nearly as much as obviously we did when we were growing up. She understands that there's a lot of information out there on social media that wasn't there, say, 10, 20 years ago. But she was frustrated in the sense that she's spending a lot of time in her practice talking about vaccines, which makes it more difficult for her to talk about all the other things that she needs to talk about.
So she writes, or she said in the video, once upon a time, it was not hard to explain the value of vaccines. So what did she used to do?
Well, I think she used to just talk about the importance of vaccines. Typically what pediatricians would do, they would say, here are the vaccines that you're getting today. Parents trusted their physician. They believed that they were basing those decisions based on good information. They believed that they were protecting their child. I just think what's happened over the last 10 years, especially, there's been a much more cynical sense that, that people aren't being told the truth, that maybe your doctor isn't telling you the truth, that maybe there's things that are going on behind the scenes that you don't know about, that maybe there's sort of this corporate influence where we're not getting the best information.
So that's strange, right? Because after 25 years of this bullshit, because it goes back to the year 2000 or before, you would think that he would be able to say succinctly, that the anti-vax movement in America is fake because it comes from two people that first pulled this bullshit in the year 2000, where one of the two people was on a billboard, 90 billboards in her bra, bringing awareness to autism. And these same people now own property in the United States and make movies and do conferences, and they have made no progress. First they said it was MMR, then they said it was cured by secretin, and they've never made any progress. These people are terrible. But instead, he says it in such weird, like, oh, well, you know, there's just a bunch of corporate stuff and people have the idea that it's corporate. Instead of saying very specifically, there's like 5 people in America that have been profiting from pushing this bullshit for this long, it's kind of terrifying. But it's actually not that big a deal. It's just kind of like how it is because, you know, the internet and stuff, social media makes people skeptical. And so instead of saying that there are very specific people out there and only those people that keep repeating the same bullshit and they never make any progress, and that's why you can see they're fake, he doesn't say it. Isn't that weird? It's almost like he wants you to check in on them.
And I think that cynicism, that skepticism, that sort of
used to do.
Well, I think she used to just talk about the importance of vaccines. Typically what pediatricians would do, they would say, here are the vaccines that you're getting today. Parents trusted their physician. They believed that they were basing those decisions based on good information. They believed that they were protecting their child. I just think what's happened over the last 10 years especially, there's been a much more cynical sense that, you know, that people aren't being told the truth, that maybe your doctor isn't telling you the truth, that maybe there's things that are going on behind the scenes that you don't know about, that maybe there's sort of this corporate influence where we're not getting the best information. And I think that cynicism, that skepticism, that sort of conspiracy theory kind of thinking has crept into the minds, I think, of a number of parents.
So as a pediatrician, does this align with your experience, Paul?
Well, I'm an old person, so I'm a private practicing pediatrician. I mean, I trained for 3 years in pediatrics at Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh and then did a 2-year fellowship in infectious disease at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So I was never really a primary care physician to the extent I was, I guess, when I was at Pittsburgh in the late 70s.
Now, if you remember, there's a couple things I want to share, and then we're going to move on from this. I just want you to see where the current narrative is. Now, remember, this is not a video. This is not a video from long ago. This is a video from like a day ago. And so Paul Offit, 70 plus years old, is unable to stop podcasting. There's nobody else to step in and do this. He's still doing it. And it's remarkable if you see how many times Paul Offit has been able to speak in front of Congress about issues related to this, because that also underscores that no progress has been made. How can the same people be in front of Congress decade after decade and no progress be made in deciding something as simple as this is obviously all safe, or obviously it's kind of like the Nazi death camps? Because that's the two sides of the coin, right? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been on camera saying that the vaccine schedule in America is effectively a modern Nazi death camp. And he says, Paul Offit says, that it's so safe that kids could have 10,000 vaccines on the same day and it wouldn't hurt them. And so how can we have two guys with such diametrically opposing biological stances on something and make no progress for more than 2 decades? How would it be possible? Why would it be that Vincent Racaniello would be the guy who considers himself Earth's virology professor? Why do we need Earth's virology professor? We don't have Earth's physicist anywhere, or if that's Neil deGrasse Tyson, well, then I guess. But what are we doing here other than witnessing the sabotage of America on social media by national security actors. You can't call him not a national security actor because he's working in America, talking about America, pretending to be a patriot, speaking out about things going wrong in America. But the things that are going wrong in America are directly tied to him because he was on Democracy Now! Opposite Mary Holland in 2015, being interviewed by the Indian co-host about how Mary Holland's a crazy person because her kid didn't get autism from the MMR like Andrew Wakefield and Polly Tommy claimed was happening in the UK 10 years earlier. He won't point out that the history of these people reveals them as frauds because his own history reveals him as a co-actor in the same shitty theater.
I had a clinic where I would see private patients or outpatients, and no, I didn't get any sense that people were any other interested in anything other than tell me what I'm supposed to do today. They were trusting, which worked well, frankly.
So what is it that the doctor has to do now that's got her frustrated?
Well, I think what Dr. Pryor said in this Instagram, which is why I highlighted it, because I thought she...
Okay, but can we all agree, can we just all agree here that if you think it is the Masons, then you have to think it's London. You have to think it's the Vatican. You have to think it's Washington, D.C. You have to think it's those three things because that's what Masonry is. So then you don't need to call it Masonry anymore. Because it's not all Masons. It's also the people that believe the Masons and don't even know that those people that they believe are Masons. So if you say it's the Masons, it's actually not as effective as saying it is people associated with the City of London, people associated with the Vatican, people associated with weaponized piles of money. You name them. It ain't BlackRock and Vanguard. It's a lot more likely people associated with Lazard, for example. And so I think from the perspective of trying to explain it to people, the use of Freemasons is something that is just not necessary. I don't see it as necessary, and it makes it so easy for people to say, that's nonsense. Just like if some of them are Jews, that doesn't mean it's the Jews. And that's the tricky part about trying to put a label on these people. They're the overclass. They're the slavers. Trying to put a label on them inevitably is going to let many of them slip through our fingers, when in reality what we need to do is catch them all in one collective net. And that collective net is this intergenerational, this multi-generational plan to take control of the evolution of the species, because people who are running their own plumbing business aren't thinking about that. People that are teaching high school kids every day aren't thinking about that. People that work for the WHO or the WEF or the UN are thinking about that. People that work for the City of London are thinking about that. People that work for banks are thinking about that. People that work for large insurance conglomerates are thinking about that. People that work for the military-industrial complex are thinking about that. People that work for large pharmaceutical conglomerates are thinking about that. People that work for Google are thinking about that. People that work for the Department of Energy are thinking about that. But red-blooded, mud-blood Americans that just, dig holes every day and mow their lawns and try to do their best to set a good example for their kids and save enough money for their kids to maybe go to college, these people are not guilty of anything except for using social media naively. And so if you came to the conclusion that Paul Offit's right, you're no different than the person who came to the conclusion that maybe Mary Talley Bowden is trying to do her best.
Her tone was exactly right. She chose pediatrics. She loves pediatrics. She loves the children in her practice. She loves dealing with parents, but she's now so burdened with questions about what vaccines am I getting and what do they do and what's in the vial and what additives are there manufactured.
Now, what I'm suggesting to you is that the timeline of these reveals no intellectual progress. That's why in 2015, Paul Offit was opposite Mary Holland, and Mary Holland said his name multiple times, and Paul Offit said her name multiple times, and they both said the name of Rand Paul multiple times, because those three actors would go on to be part of this national security show throughout COVID. Rand Paul would be opposite Tony Fauci arguing about a lab leak, and Paul Offit would be opposite Aaron Siri and Mary Holland and CHD and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as they rose into prominence as the Maha movement. It was an orchestrated script and a theater where these people effectively agree not to actually win, but just agree to argue and make smoke. That's what they do. That's how we are governed. None of these people are real.
And this is where I think both the establishment and the establishment media must be challenged. Why we need independent media when it comes to war.
So we're supposed to believe that her stance is that we need independent media to tell the truth about war, and that basically means that about biology, you know, like, I guess, resources and the environment and climate change and genetics and pandemics, she's just going to toe the line. But with the war stuff, she's going to tell the truth. And that's basically what she is. She is a climate activist. She is a, population problem activist. She is a climate change activist. She's an environmentalist that believes that everything is going to be burning down in 6 years. She's a believer in nuclear weapons and that there are too many of them. She's a believer in everything. She just wants the truth about war. And this is absurd. And she has made no progress in all this time. She's just gotten a movie made about her. A movie made about her as a hero, while she simultaneously complains that journalism and independent journalism is being squashed around the world, but she is able to make a living and able to broadcast around the globe despite the bankers, despite the evil empires, despite all these nasty fascists that are. There was Tucker Carlson promoting her a long time ago because it's all one show. Not everybody's in on it, but the key actors are. And that's the reason why there's so much footage of her, why there's so much coverage of her, why she has so many Indians on her show, why her co-host has always been an Indian, is because this is all one malevolent show being run with as many agents as they possibly need, and a lot of them come from India. Now, what I find very striking, I don't know if you caught it or not, but in Ian Carroll's introduction, he uses Amy Goodman. He uses her face and he uses her voice, where she says oxygen is information is the oxygen of democracy. Ian Carroll uses her in his brief introductory slide run. That's not by accident. That's not a mistake that he would correct if you pointed it out to him, because he is probably handled by the exact same people that she is handled by, the exact same people that Tim Pool is handled by, because while she went to jail during Occupy Wall Street, Tim Pool got recruited. While Luke Rudkowski got recruited. She might have been really a okay actor before Occupy Wall Street, for all I know, but at some point all of these people were recruited, and since then they have done wonderful, while at the same time being able to complain about their censorship. Listen to what she says about what social media is. I might have to escape and do a restart here. Sorry about that.
That public media has been defunded and is under attack. You've also seen the proliferation of a lot of citizen journalists and sort of like micro journalistic organizations, people who are influencers on platforms like TikTok or Instagram. How do you think that has changed journalism as an industry, or the kinds of information that American...
Yes, she got an enormous amount of publicity for being put in jail for a night during Occupy Wall Street. Absolutely, positively a total stunt.
...are able to, or in fact, seek out.
I mean, we could never have predicted the way the social media platforms...
We could have never predicted the way that social media platforms have... No, yes, we could have. We did predict it because they're military platforms. The reason why the reason why Twitter was rolled out with only 140 characters because the chat bots at the time were only able to process paragraphs of 140 characters. They had the users, unbeknownst to them, create thoughts in less than 140 characters to make it easier and more uniform input for the chatbot they were training. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. We didn't know what social media would do. We're really surprised. Oh my goodness. We're almost breaking free. The bankers almost lost control of the populace because social media is so free. Oh my gosh, they had to censor it. And if it wasn't for censoring, boy, we'd be breaking free right now. See how stupid that is? We could never have known what social media would do. That is preposterous. They knew exactly what it was going to do. It was going to replace the mainstream media with a personalized silo of bullshit for every skilled user.
Have come into being, and there is a lot good, I think, in this. You know, at Democracy Now!, it's
a lot good in social media, and I am arguing, unlike anybody else on the internet, that actually, for the most part, all of social media is crap. The only way to use social media effectively is simply look at the people that you follow, and that is it. And if you can't do that on one given platform, then that platform is bullshit. You can't do it on X, so get off. It's very hard to do it on YouTube. I only follow like 4 people, and they're not the only things in my feed. They are in my feed, though, which I can say is at least something. It's also impossible to avoid the ads on any of these platforms except for PeerTube, hosted by somebody that you trust, because there's no ads there. I guess you could host on their own website, and you could host on Vimeo like I do. That's also possible. But if you use social media, you are going to leave yourself vulnerable to ideas that you don't want to have in your head. And if you've ever read the book The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, then you know that there is this kind of general maximum amount of thoughts that you can have in your mind in any given day, and people have tried to count them. You know, it's something like 39,000. And if you don't carefully curate the majority of those thoughts, but instead you just open your mind to any thoughts willy-nilly, then thoughts will be put in there, especially if you're surfing social media, and those won't be great. And I am arguing that right now, more than ever, we need to teach our children, by example, of curating our thoughts every day and making sure that we are in control of most of them. And so you can come spend some time with me, and at least we can be in control of our thoughts for a couple
8 to 9 every morning, and classes come in from around New York City, maybe high schoolers, journalism students, mid-year journalists.
Now, it is terrifying to think that
ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to have Amy Goodman
that this person is being promoted by these other frauds. This man is one of the worst frauds in America. He is a rich man pretending to be speaking out as a socialist for the masses. He is the ultimate in scum because he believes that it's okay to lie to win. Just like all these other people believe it's okay to lie to win. And so he's lying to win. And he's working closely with this woman who is kind of lying to win because she thinks America is a bad system and believes in global rule and believes in the UN being better and this kind of thing. And so this man is being promoted on Wired and also the New York Times. This woman is being promoted by everyone and everywhere. and even by the people that used to work with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on radio shows are promoting this person. It was all one malevolent show, all one network of actors. It's all one side. They're all left. They're not conservatives. They're all trying to sabotage conservative America. That's really what it is. And any conservative that believes in them is probably, if they're legitimate, then they've been fooled by them. And slowly but surely, they're going to come to realize that their particular choice in actor was wrong, but it'll be too late. And we've got to teach people how to formulate this correctly so that they can explain it to other Americans, so that other Americans can see that this is just as bad as what happened during COVID. But now it's different because it's about the Iran war, and it's about Gaza, and it's about Lebanon, and it's about Epstein. But it's exactly the same trick that was applied during COVID with lab leaks and alternative early treatments and monoclonal antibodies. Except now it's genocide and drone-targeted machine guns and dogs that rape prisoners and ceasefires that are violated and straits that are closed and fertilizer that won't get made anymore. It's always been podcasters who impose the wrong working assumptions on their audiences that do it. And they've been put in place a very long time ago. And so many of them are associated with the foreign entity of India. Here it is. I'm going to play it again.
What happened at Telluride? When you were...
Listen. Oh, it didn't play. What happened? Why didn't that work? Okay, I got to hold on a minute. I got to make this better. Let's see how this works. This one should be there. That plays. This pauses. Why didn't that work? Huh. That should have worked. It should have been.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor
and
to
then three
have
pictures,
Amy Goodman and Carl Deal
and then
here
this one
today
should
on
play,
this
and that
wonderful
should
day.
pause.
I'm a
Oh
huge
no!
fan.
I got to put this in front of it. That's what I got to do. This one's got to be here and on a click, and then this one starts with it. There we go. Okay, let's see if it works again. Sorry about that.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor
glitch
to
there.
have Amy Goodman and Carl
So
Deal
these three
here
should come up,
today
and then
on
this one should
wonderful
pause
day.
that.
I'm a huge fan, as you guys already know. I have the clip somewhere. I'm gonna
Oh,
pull it up.
I see what that is. That's the wrong pause. So we get rid of this, remove, on click, and then this one, I need to add it to that one. So that's selection. Just let me fix this. It's annoying. But I have to fix it. Animation, and then we do multiple, then we do pause.
Ladies and
gentlemen, do this here, then we put that here. We could do it like this. Okay, now this should work. So again, remember the point of this slide is to
Ladies and
illustrate
gentlemen.
that this scripted traitor to America's children being amplified all over the internet is now amplifying this already long-time scripted traitor to America, funded by India, promoted all around the world, and always scripted to say America's kind of bad, but I don't know, confusingly also saying that Iran is bad. So she's a weird one. Anyway, Hassan Piker is being promoted all over the internet. Amy Goodman's being promoted all over the internet, and it's to the demise of the Maha movement, because a lot of these Maha people are now going to cross over or say that it was my fault or whatever. Listen.
Theories are entering a
Information is the oxygen of democracy.
Information is the oxygen of democracy. There's her face right there. Look. There it is. That's her face.
Conspiracy theories are entering a
Information is the oxygen of democracy.
And information is the oxygen of democracy. Now, the next thing that gets said in this beginning is so blatantly obvious. We're going to see a pentagram. We're going to see other stupid symbols. And you're going to hear somebody say something so dumb.
So much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm.
There's so much evidence out there that if even 1% of it was true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm. I want you to think about how stupid that is. There's so much evidence out there that if even 1% of it was true, it wouldn't be enough to collapse the whole paradigm. I want you to think for yourself how stupid that is, and then I'm going to play it one more time because it's really that stupid, and then we'll talk about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to have Amy Goodman and Carl Deal.
Why didn't that work? It should have worked.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to have...
Gosh darn it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to...
Okay.
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous...
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
There's
Conspiracy theories are entering a dangerous...
Information is the oxygen of the democracy.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm.
If I go out in my backyard and I count all the leaves that are on the ground and I measure them all and then I take the average, is that evidence? If I keep track of all the birds that eat from my bird feeder for a month, is that evidence of something? If I go on a road trip and take some selfies in front of Fort Chattanooga, is that evidence of something? If 1% of the evidence out there is real and nobody knows which evidence is real, then how's the paradigm ever going to collapse? That's what's so stupid about this, is that all these people saying that there's all this evidence out there, but they have no ability to prioritize what evidence matters, why the evidence matters, and more importantly, they're not bringing any expertise to the table that lends any credence to their interpretation. They're not demonstrating any previous track record of being able to recognize patterns and predict future events. They've never tried to change anybody's mind and shown what happens when they do. And that's because they're all frauds. And Ian Carroll's one of the worst frauds in America right now alive. And he is associated directly with Tucker Carlson. And on Tucker Carlson, he promoted John Cullen. And John Cullen and John Goodman are connected to George Webb, just like Robert Malone. And it very quickly becomes right back to Robert Malone, the guy who worked with the greatest Indian geneticist ever, the Indian geneticist that was running distraction and damage control after Jesse Gelsinger. The guy who Robert Malone claims to have gotten PTSD from, but I guess he could also be his primary connection to the Indian intelligence agencies. I mean, you know, then you could just say that he gave you PTSD, just like you say that, I don't know, Mike Callahan's a liar because he works for the CIA and he's a man in Wuhan. These are career script enacting national security actors, and that's why they feel very comfortable doing it. They've been doing it for a very long time. And the ones that haven't been doing it for a very long time are about to become very uncomfortable with doing it. That's what you see happening with Ian Carroll. That's what you will see happening with Shannon Joy. That's what you will see happening with Mel K. That's what you're going to see happening with these people as the proportion of their support goes from 99% positive to around 50% positive. Because once you have 50% of people saying that you're a fraud, that you've made no progress, that what are you lying about this time, it's a lot less fun to be famous. And while Nick Fuentes has been prepared for this part of the role for a very long time, I don't think Ian Carroll is ready for it. I don't think Candace Owens is ready for it. And I think actually all of these people are actively insulated from their fall. Robert Malone will not see it until it's too late. Meryl Nass will not see it until it's too late. Mary Holland will not see it until it's too late. Until the van with Homeland Security shows up at her house to arrest her, she will not see it coming. But someday, I assure you, that is going to happen. If it's the last thing I am able to accomplish in my life, the health freedom frauds that worked against my family for the last 6 years will not only be accurately cataloged and documented in a book authored by me so that generations from now people can know their names, but these people will in their lifetime still be called to account publicly as frauds. I promise you this. Mary Holland is going to be identified on the world stage as a fraud. Polly Tommy will be on the world stage identified as a fraud. Not for some people, I mean for the globe. This is going to happen, I promise you. It's the last thing I do with my life. The history of America during my lifetime will be accurately recorded. And Joshua Lederberg will be accurately credited with being the genius that he is, with the insight that he's had, and the censorship that he's experienced posthumously. We're going to set the record straight, ladies and gentlemen. No one else is going to do it but me and Mark, so we're going to do it. And then we'll see what happens afterward. And it's going to start with this meeting in August. I hope you will be there. The remarkable thing is that this guy has started promoting.
And since then, I have been digging deep, scouring the web across databases and looking for records.
What you see here is him
where we're starting out from. But I wanted to follow up on my theory, okay? Because in the original video, while I had some solid architectural analysis from Andrew Kerr, it was mostly based off of like a gut instinct, in my own pattern recognition. And since then, I have been digging deep, scouring the web across databases and looking for records, and I have come back with actual receipts, like some actual verifiable public record receipts. And
so she's claiming to be a lot like Mark Kulak. She's got a subscription to newspapers.com, and she does a lot of keyword searching, and she's real clever at combining them. And now she's got the receipts. And more importantly, Ian Carroll, who's a little uncomfortable being such a visible traitor as he is, wants to get off stage. And so he's been very busy watching other people's podcasts and telling people to subscribe to those podcasts.
Now my theory is stronger than ever, okay? Because I know that Trump is not building a ballroom. He's building an underground data center, and I have the receipts now to prove it. But really quick, if you want to read all of the sources and the documentation for yourself from this video, then they're all going to be linked at the bottom of my Substack.
Support creators.
Sorry about
support the work they do. Give them follow.
It's still crashing. Hold on 1 second. Let me reset this thing. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. We'll just start that slide over again. So he's promoting this chick, and this is a girl that I showed you before, rising ridiculously fast with a script exclusively about Ellison and about data collection, not knowing what it's for. And so I made the accusation that this person is a scripted traitor who doesn't even know how she's being used. And before I know it, she's got 500,000 subscribers, and Ian Carroll's saying she's awesome.
It was mostly based off of like a gut instinct, in my own pattern recognition. And since then, I have been digging deep, scouring the web across databases and looking for records, and I have come back with actual receipts, like some actual verifiable public record receipts. And now my theory is stronger than ever, okay? Because I know that Trump is not building a ballroom. He's building an underground data center, and I have the receipts now to prove it. But really quick, if you want to read all of the sources and the documentation for yourself from this video, then they're all going to be linked at the bottom of my...
A data center for what? It's so dumb. It's like if you just put a bunch of servers together, then I guess you're guilty of something. None of these people have an explanation for why. I guess they think that we need AI data centers for AI to make AI videos even better, or to make AI content to control people, or to make AI content to steal people's jobs. I don't really understand what it is exactly that they think data centers are going to be used for, but I have a very good idea that it has something to do with the Human Genome Project and medical data. It has nothing to do with AI and videos and chatbots. But of course, that is the illusion that these people are agreeing to create. It has nothing to do with the Department of Energy and Kevin McKernan and Robert Malone and sequencing and medical databases. It has nothing to do with that at all. It's about AI and stealing people's jobs and fake videos.
My Substack,
Go support her, support creators, support the work they do, give them follows, give them likes, all that stuff. So that's just a little intro. Can I just shout out, it's so refreshing to find independent journalists that have an attention span these days, that you can tell when you watch Dre do her work that she is not caught up in the slop river. She is not caught up in which way the wind blows, who said what on Twitter, all this shit, which, you know, a lot of us, myself included, are guilty of getting just sucked away from what we're trying to do. And I think that's kind of the point. And it's so refreshing to find people that can follow a train of thought still. It's incredibly rare in this slopified world. Baron Coleman comes to mind as a journalist that can follow a train of thought and stick with it. Candace, there's a lot of people that do it. And it's just really notable in Dre's style, and it's refreshing. It's super refreshing. So thanks for being like a sane, rational person, Dre. It's refreshing in this media landscape these days. 6 minutes in, we're going to jump in to number 6 here.
Number 4.
Really interesting, and, you know, being balanced and chill. Danks is cool. He also has all these other cool projects going on. I haven't seen all of his work at all.
Here he is pushing another guy called Danks. Now, after he's done pushing Danks, he's going to go on some kind of stream of consciousness that, in my opinion, admits so many things at once, it's really hard to comprehend. But I'll play it anyway.
I can't keep up with everybody, but what I have seen from him, super great shit. Shout out to Danks. You're the man. On a different note, speaking about people's vibes and people's integrity and people's trust, obviously I only have the trust and integrity that you think I do. And there's a lot of people out there, people and bots, I don't know, Israelis on X that
Israelis on X, because it couldn't be any other country. It's just Israelis. It's not Russia. It's not Ukraine. It's not Spain. It's definitely not Germans. It's probably not people from Lithuania. I don't know. There's not enough people in Cyprus. It's Israel.
Pretend to be American that think I have no credibility.
Don't forget that Netanyahu was also shown on Mark's Rass show saying something about how, you know, these podcasters from other countries on social media pretending to be American.
And no trust, and that's fine. I don't care. Whatever. You make your own perspective, your own opinions. Totally fine to be suspicious of me. Totally fine to question my rise. Totally fine to think for yourself. That's how you should be thinking. But I'll just offer you my perspective on Candace because I have a very unique perspective. I mean, I have a very unique position in this industry too.
First of all, this industry is the same kind of spell that they cast when they kept saying for years and years, the Maha movement. Every time Steve Bannon said the Maha movement, he was enchanting it into existence. But in reality, there was no Maha movement except for the people that agreed there was. There was no whole Maha movement except for places where they hung up the signs. The Boy Scouts is a real organization. The Maha movement is bullshit. This industry, independent media industry, is bullshit. But he says, in this industry. I'm not in that industry. I am an American, streaming to you live from his garage, and that's it. These people are in an industry because it has sponsors, and it has funders, and it has secret sponsors and secret funders, and the government has interest in it, and private weaponized piles of money have interest in it, and so it is an industry. I'm not in an industry. I'm an American citizen streaming from his garage. That's why I'm not a podcaster. I'm funded by people like you.
I am one of the few people in this industry that has a very large platform now that knows, like personally knows, a lot of the biggest people in the alternative media industry, and like literally just came from my kitchen job 3 years ago. No Daily Wire, big organizations, no social media managers, no managers whatsoever, no PR guys, nobody managing my Twitter. I don't do any of that shit, and I never have. I don't take any money from anybody, never have. I've done like 4 paid advertisements on TikTok for.
If those 4 paid advertisements were $250,000 each, that would be interesting, right? For example, I'm just saying.
Discrete, specific product advertisements that I very much labeled when they were, and that's it. No like weird groups that are giving me support or advice. None of.
On the other hand, I was a medical faculty, a medical professor in the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine when I accidentally, on my brown-nosing podcast, decided to do a naive but realistic and quite accurate review on coronaviruses and got myself in trouble that ended up losing a career that I had for 20 years that I worked really hard and sacrificed a lot to get to. I also lost a house in Shaler because I couldn't fulfill my rent-to-own part of the agreement because of losing my job. Then I got recruited by these people that I thought maybe could be good, but figured out that they weren't. And that's why I know all these people. That's a kind of an interestingly different story than I came from a kitchen and I'm friends with all of these people. Isn't that significantly different to you? I had a job and a career that I lost because I accidentally spoke out against something that I didn't understand. But now that I understand it to be a fraud that's sustained by people that are paid to sustain the fraud. Nonprofits and booksellers and scientists and FDA officials. It's a very different message than this jackass with 700,000 followers who's telling you that Candace and Tucker are just real people.
Of it. It's like literally just me observing the social media landscape, saying, I want to get into this landscape and work there. And then based on my understanding of it, trying my best and getting very lucky and also, doing a good job of it. And here I am. And it's so fucking weird. And it's understandable if you're suspicious of that. If you don't believe that, that's fine. I have zero concern about dig into it. It's the truth. And it's a fuck.
How are we going to dig into it? You could dig into my career by looking to my publications on PubMed. You can dig into it by looking at my actual videos and listening to them. There's nothing to dig in for him. What are you going to do? Find his resume on Indeed? Are you going to call the restaurant that he worked at? Are you going to be able to verify his friendship with all these people? Yeah, I met him at a bar once. What are we going to verify? What is there to dig into?
Fucking crazy story. And someday I'll write some book that no one needs to read about it. But it's a crazy fucking story. But what it means is that I have a...
He's a normal guy, but he has a crazy story about how he got here. Being like an American thought leader on TikTok and YouTube.
Really unique perspective on someone like Candace. Because Candace is just a regular woman. Like, she's just a regular person. But she did come up through those institutions. She had to exit from the establishment. But she was created by the establishment originally, right? The Daily Wire and, Associated, TPUSA, Charlie Kirk, the people that picked her created her. And she was in that ecosystem first.
But she got picked before that. She got picked when she was in high school and did some stupid stunt that was a lie. She got picked when she was involved in Gamergate. She got picked when she started a company with Mark Weiner's daughter. That's all before the bullshit that he's saying now. What is this?
And then had to exit and get back to being just herself. To be fair, she's ungovernable as fuck. And so she was pretty much just herself all throughout, I suspect. I didn't know her back then. But that's kind of a different trajectory, right? Like Tucker Carlson, he's just himself now. Like Tucker is just doing what he thinks is best. And himself is built from his whole life story, from his CIA dad, from his like WASP upbringing, from his he's built from an establishment pedigree.
His great-grandfather or grandfather was the richest man in California. That's a long time ago for you to be rich.
And he was an establishment person and figure. He was built by Fox News for so long.
If you are an establishment figure built by Fox News, built by intergenerational wealth from a grandfather that was the cattle king of California, you don't just then become a fly fishing, outspoken man of the people. That's just stupid. And the fact that Ian is insisting that he knows that it's true is just as stupid. This is desperation. This is an admission that he was recruited. He doesn't know why he's here, but he wants to fuck out. I'm sorry for that swear word.
But then he exited and now is establishing just Tucker again. But I'm not like that, which is unique and it's fun and it's interesting. And I'm obviously not anywhere near as big as either of those two guys. But I do know them. And I know Candace particularly well because I literally worked out of her basement every single day for like a month and a half while she was pregnant, or rather, while she was on maternity leave, nursing her new baby.
She was on maternity leave nursing her new baby, and you stayed in her basement. I can't think of a better way to end up hating somebody that was your friend than to have them stay in your basement during that time of your life. I can share a very nice little story here about my deceased friend Nathan. The first time that I brought my wife Firla to the United States to introduce her to everyone, to all of my friends, we stayed at their house only a couple days after they had their first baby. And we were completely unaware. It was like, oh yeah, you guys got a baby, huh? Look at my girlfriend. Look at me, I'm so happy, and I'm coming from the Netherlands, and I'm so cool. And oh, you guys got a baby, that's cool. And of course, they were all kinds of stressing out about breastfeeding and changing and putting the kid to bed. And we were like, can we borrow the car? Can we have a key to your house? Can we come and go as we please? Are you guys going to have a barbecue or what? And then a couple years later, when we had our first kid, within the first week, I called Nathan to say that I wanted to apologize to Anne for having been so ridiculously lost in myself that during the first week of your daughter's life, I was just, preoccupied with being in your house like a hotel and trying to get the most out of the host instead of being completely aware of what you were going through as a new couple of parents with a new life form. And so here he's trying to pretend that it was just normal for him to be in the basement of a woman who's breastfeeding her newborn baby on maternity leave. I don't know what he was doing in her basement or work. I mean, what is this?
And I worked with her whole team very closely every single day. I know George quite well. And I've met her extended family too. And they're all awesome. They're cool. And there's nothing weird about it. Like, they are just regular folks. Her whole team just wanted to leave the Daily Wire, and they like working together, and they're the shit, and they have regular lives and regular spouses, and they're just good folks. And Candace is exactly the same person off camera as on camera. There's no difference. And it's honestly hilarious. Because when you have, and anyone who's ever
how about one anecdotal story about this time when I was in the basement and I had my laptop open and I was watching a horror movie and the kids came downstairs and I had my headphones on and I didn't know they were there, and all of a sudden I heard them scream because the zombies came on the screen and they were watching and they screamed, and then I screamed because there were 3 kids behind me. I didn't know they were there. How about one story, Ian, about what happened while you were down there for a month and a half? Like when you and Candace were playing PlayStation in the basement while she was breastfeeding the baby or something. I mean, what? Anything? It's bullshit. It's just complete bullshit. That just helps reinforce the idea that I guess Candace has kids with some white guy from England that she fell in love with, love at first sight,
Extended anons and people that have given her tips. Anyone that's gotten on the phone with Candace for one moment, just extraneously, they'll all tell you that what happens is you just launch straight into the same stream of consciousness Candace that is on the screen. It's just like she's on this thought train and we're talking about this thing and immediately you're just talking about the thing. You're just like fucking going. And it's to the point where it's like, I'm never sure if I need to like take notes when I'm just.
So does that mean that she's been talking about Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk for like ever? That's all she talks about all day long, all the time, and never about anything else? It's just such a preposterous story. Exactly the opposite story would come from somebody who hung out with me for a month and a half. They would say like, dude, Jay can't shut up about anything. You could tell Jay, cue Jay up about I don't know, tinfoil and its uses as a radio antenna, and he would start talking and never stop. You'd have to go get another drink and ask him to quit. Like, this is just, it's preposterous. It's so stupid. It's so bad because it doesn't make any sense. It's just insisting that they are real, insisting that Tucker Carlson is real.
Chatting with Candace about whatever, even if it's just irrelevant, like personal stuff, because it's just like, we are going, dude. It's hilarious. Relevant in a weird way. Someone said, did you get starstruck and awe? And the answer is no, I didn't. People aren't stars, dude. They're just people. Like, they're not stars. I don't get nervous in this industry for that reason. And it's a blessing because you need to take us all off pedestals. I'm not like some special person. Candace is not like, she's no different than any other human soul on this planet.
Then why the hell should we listen to you? Why the hell should anybody listen to you? Why are people being made to listen to you? Why are other people agreeing that you're somebody worth listening to if you're just like any other person on earth? Because guess what? I'm not. I'm not like any other person on earth. I'm one of the most unique people you're ever going to find on the internet because I'm a mudblood American who has no ties to anywhere else but America. I love this country more than I can explain. I got a wife that I love more than I can explain and some kids that I love more than I can explain. And that's about the only motivations I have. And I stream to you live from Pittsburgh every day. I have an expertise built on 20 years of trying to chase tenure as a neurobiologist. And you should take my word on things biology because I've worked very hard to try and figure it out. And I had the requisite expertise and prior knowledge to attempt it. And I've been so successful that my name is in this book as an expert, and I'm calling this fraudulent book a fraud for what it is. I'm telling you that America is under attack because of my personal experience with the people doing it. So I'm not just some average American, I'm not like every other Joe. I'm not. I'm going to be real humble here and submit that I'm smarter than the average Joe. I've worked harder than the average Joe. I've given more people the benefit of the doubt than the average Joe. And I've tried to change more real minds of real people in this show than the average Joe. And that's why you should listen to me and not just anybody on the street like Candace Owens or Ian Carroll, who used to work in a kitchen and describes himself as an entrepreneur.
Tucker is just a dude. Okay. These people have done cool things with their lives. They have a lot of fame, but fame does not come with you. Fame is not some like great accolade.
Fame is programmed in because he was in the checkout aisle of TikTok for a year, because Candace was in the checkout aisle of conservative media for several years. Because Candace was recruited by Steve Bannon and Harvey Weinstein. That's why they are visible. That's why they are famous. It's generated.
Fame is honestly kind of uncomfortable, and it corrupts you if you let it. And you should not idolize it. And anyone who does idolize it, that's a red flag. And that is one of the red flags about Blake Bednar's that I don't like.
These are all frauds, ladies and gentlemen. And you can see that actually even Thomas Massey is a fraud. of the
Look,
highest
this is an
order.
IQ test, and it may just be a memory test. Do you remember monkeypox? Do you remember bird flu? Do you remember every time they've tried to bring back...
The reason why you can see he's a scripted fraud is because there are 420 other representatives in the United States that are, from the legislative perspective, from the congressional perspective, exactly the same as him. They have one vote in that body of our government, and yet for some reason or another, there's like 5 of these people that we ever hear from, and several of them are from India. And then there's this jackass in Kentucky who we're supposed to money bomb because he might lose. And the reason why he might lose is because AIPAC and the Jews are funding people against him or something. We're supposed to believe that maybe even after he told everybody on Tucker Carlson's show that everybody in Congress except for him has an AIPAC handler, that his wife died, and maybe that, I don't know, maybe AIPAC killed her. I think that was all a hoax. I think they were going to get a divorce because he's a cheating scumbag. And so in order to use that divorce to their advantage and keep their actor on stage, they took her off stage like they took Charlie Kirk off stage. They didn't kill her. They kirked her. And this is what allows the family and the children also to accept it. Because it's a national security narrative, you literally can't tell anybody that this is what we're doing. And in the meantime, he gets to be involved with Rand Paul's staffers and marries her a year later. And now they're going to bring out other stories about how he's trash or whatever and get people to argue about one guy out of 400 plus. One representative seat out of 400 plus is being promoted on Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is not going to talk to every representative in the United States to try and spread it out, to try and give everybody a promotion, to try and make sure that the best candidates are elected across the United States. No, because he's a scripted actor who only talks to the people he's told to talk to. In this case, Ro Khanna, maybe Jayapal or Rajna Krishnamurthy, Jayanta Bhattacharya, or maybe this guy. How about Marty McCary and Vinay Prasad? Yeah, he's mentioned them too. I met this guy in person and gave him an annotated version of the Wuhan book written in hand. I never heard from him again because he is a scripted fraud that was on stage with Alex Jones and the Young Turks back in 2017 already, pretending to be some kind of real, or 16, pretending to be some kind of real journalist, when in fact he's just a comedian performing on stage with Roger Stone as well present, already mic'd up. We have been fooled by an elaborate con, ladies and gentlemen. You need to watch the movie The Sting. If you haven't seen the movie The Sting with Robert Redford, you need to watch it, because that movie will teach you what they have done.
Back to COVID lockdowns, we don't need to go back to that. That was a complete failure, the whole response to...
We're supposed to believe that this man has hundreds of acres in a self-sustained homestead that he built himself because he went to MIT and he's really smart. I wonder if he sold any intellectual property to India. This is also the genius that took a campaign picture of him and his family with guns. This is not a real man. It's not a real person. It might not even be the original Thomas Massey, for all I know. This guy is a complete scumbag. I'm sure of it. That's why he associates with Ro Khanna and says the Epstein class all the time.
COVID, and don't let them bring it back. This is an IQ test at this point.
The hantavirus is a big deal right now. And so now here's Dr. Robert Malone, who was, no matter what the Atlantic...
So what you can see here is that Thomas Massey doesn't have anything to do with his time. He's able to go on Jimmy Dore's show and record a podcast with him where Jimmy Dore wastes a few minutes promoting Robert Malone and his 1 million+ subscriber Substack. This is an admission that this is a national security exercise, sabotaging resistance in America, sabotaging a specific demographic in America, including the poisoning of that demographic by encouraging them to use ivermectin as a cure-all for viral diseases based in RNA. This is not a joke. This is real. And it is Jimmy Dore and Thomas Massey and Jayanta Bhattacharya and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and it doesn't matter which of these people understands, they are all part of it. And until they are exposed as this theater troupe of the macabre, so that some of these people who were unaware finally pull their heads out and admit that they were bamboozled and admit who did it, we are not going to escape.
Magazine says he was the inventor of the mRNA platform. He was the first one.
Can you feel the hamster wheel turning underneath you when people say that Robert Malone invented the mRNA vaccine? And can you see the hamster wheel turning underneath your paws? The only temptation is to run faster.
To do that. And of course, he didn't invent the COVID vaccine, but he invented the platform that it was built on. And he's got patents on many vaccines, and he's one of the leading people in that field. And so here's what he tweeted out yesterday. He said, your odds...
Again, remember that part of the agreement here is that all of these scripted actors agree that social media is a place where the truth gets out. And so all you have to do is follow the right people and you can get the truth. So part of what Jimmy Dore does, part of what Tim Pool does, part of what PBS NewsHour does is tell you that Substackers are real, that Substacker's a job, and that you can make money and do journalism on Substack. And PBS NewsHour, Fox News, Jimmy Dore, and ICANN and CHD, they all agree. Substack has got real truth tellers on Substack. Dre Dossier has a Substack, and Ian Carroll says you should definitely subscribe. And the truth gets out on Twitter.
Of being struck by lightning are more than 7 times greater than getting hantavirus in the USA. About 250 people get...
It's all the same actors, ladies and gentlemen. It's very terrifying, but it's
passengers
all the same
disembarking
actors.
Overnight from the cruise ship linked to a deadly hantavirus outbreak after arriving off the coast of the Canary Islands.
At least 17 Americans are among those that are being evacuated as officials race to keep the virus contained.
Chanley Painter here with the latest. Chanley.
Hey, good morning. So the 140 passengers on board the hantavirus-plagued MV Hondias are now disembarking in groups by nationality via small boats of up to 10 people. This after the cruise ship arrived in the Canary Islands off the coast of Africa a few hours ago. The World Health Organization is reassuring people on the island that there's no risk to the public, and Spanish health officials say the passengers all remain asymptomatic. While none of the current passengers have tested positive for the hantavirus, the outbreak did earlier kill 3 people on board, while several others tested positive. So now the remaining passengers and crew are leaving the ship after undergoing health screenings, and once off the ship, they will be bused to the airport for flights to their home country.
Of course, it is
again not like COVID. We've handled outbreaks like this before. I think in 2018 there was an outbreak in the United States. My message to the American people is, please don't worry.
This is again a dynamic type of situation, and the goal is for all of the repatriation flights to take place.
She can't even comb her hair. She can't even keep her hair combed. Why should we take this person seriously? You can see why she was chosen. She's not chosen because she's a brilliant scientist. She was chosen because she's easy on the eyes. And Jayanta Bhattacharya was not chosen because he's a brilliant scientist. He was chosen because he's Indian.
On Sunday and Monday. We do know that there's a weather system that's coming in, and I think they want to do all of the repatriation before that comes through.
17 Americans on the ship will now be...
We will just move through this.
We gaan hem niet langer laten wachten. Maar na al die jaren talkshow is hij natuurlijk...
So what I would like to demonstrate here is or give you a piece of anecdotal evidence that I am right. That what these people are actually doing is a parody of America. The idea is to ruin the image of America, the idea of America around the world. And so they are doing it across the first world. This is a evening program from the Netherlands, and the guest is an American. And the American guest will admit that what he does in his new comedy show about travel is a parody of Americans, and it is frickin' dark.
krankzinnig goed Amerikaans applaus gewend. Dat kunnen wij toch ook hier, hè?
Zeker.
Toch klaar voor? Hier is talkshow-legende Conan O'Brien.
And so what she said there was Conan O'Brien is really used to the strong and loud applause in America, so we can do that for him too, right? And then now they're going to give him a round of applause.
For having me. A pleasure. Have a seat.
Hi. Hey, man. Good to see you.
Welcome to the
How are
show,
you?
Conan.
Thank you. Hi.
Goed, jongens.
He's a writer for The Simpsons. He's a legitimately funny guy. I do really like him. And if you haven't seen it, there's a video where he takes a staffer, an Asian staffer, I don't know if she's Chinese or Korean or what, out on a drive because she's a student driver. And they pick up Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. And it's a really, really funny video. Anyway, I think Conan is quite funny. Obviously, he's an establishment guy. Obviously, he says what he's told to say, but he's still funny.
So good to have you here, Conan.
It's lovely to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I'm not used to having audience sit behind me.
Scary, right?
This is very frightening.
Yeah, I'll watch them, you watch them.
Yes, okay, very good.
You arrived yesterday,
Yes.
the wildest day of the year here in Holland, and you're still alive.
Yes, I showed up, my wife and I got here at 6 in the morning and changed. I went out and King's Day.
Right.
And madness.
No, when I lived in the Netherlands, it was Queen's Day, and it is a nationwide holiday where everybody does day drinking. And perhaps the best thing about Queen's Day was that the kids in Amsterdam put together games in the park, in the Vondelpark, and the games are very elaborate. I'll give you a couple examples. At the time, the queen, or so I guess it would have been the princess at that time, Princess Maxima, was, not having kids yet. And so one of the games that we encountered on Queen's Day was a old anatomical model of it was like somebody had made the model of a woman, and you were supposed to throw darts into the womb in order to make Maxima pregnant. And I can't remember if you were throwing babies or you're throwing darts, but anyway, it was like that. There was another one where the kids had put a rope between two trees, and they had suspended this broom, and they had to get on the broom, and then they pushed you and you had to hit a target, and it was like a Harry Potter thing. They also, one of my favorite ones was this group of kids. Oh, this is the best one. The group of kids, and this is the whole point, is that you also give them money, but you never win. So the games are supposed to be clever in that way. And one of the best games that they had at Queen's Day in the Vondelpark that I remember was a group of kids had all dressed up as wrestlers, and they had a mattress, and then you could pick the two wrestlers and bet on who wins, and of course the other person would always win. It was great. And they had a lot of people standing around because, of course, that's entertaining, right? They were throwing each other and body slamming. Oh, sorry, you lose. It was really great. So anyway, that's what they're doing. But now they don't have a queen anymore. They have a king. So it's King's Day, and it's on the king's birthday, which I think is still in April. But anyway, maybe it's in May.
Day drinking.
Absolute madness. Day drinking, which I'm used to. That is my sport. But everyone was fantastic. People here are very polite. And yes, to me anyway, the young people kept saying, can I make a picture with you, Conan?
Oh, wow.
And then they would say, thank you so much. Thank you. Have a wonderful King's Day. That's what all the young people said to me.
Was
that's
this
not
after
how people
you had been drinking?
After I think when they get drunk, they're very polite. Yeah, that's the sense I get.
I heard that before you came, you were actually afraid that people wouldn't recognize you.
I wouldn't say afraid. That would imply that I have a huge ego, which I do not. But I was pleasantly surprised that so many, especially younger people, seemed to know. So that was nice.
You already met him. This is Peter, of course. You know,
Peter and I met backstage.
Yeah, he's our best comedian, the biggest. He won't say anything during this conversation. He's going to sit here and watch you talk.
Okay.
Yeah. I hate my English, so
yeah.
Don't be freaked out.
I won't be freaked out.
For example, the Netherlands is a place where one of these people could interview me, and the best thing about it is, ik kan een beetje Nederlands praten. Ik kan een beetje Nederlands praten. Ik kan proberen dit verhaal te uitleggen in je eigen taal is wel een beetje handig. Maar voor 6 jaar is dat niet gebeuren. So for 6 years, this has been a possibility that, someone in the Netherlands could pick up on this guy who also speaks Dutch and tell an alternative story about what's going on in America. But again, nobody in Holland has made it. It's not even come close to being possible. But it is possible. Somebody in Holland could just make a phone call, and suddenly an American who can speak a little tiny bit of Dutch could break through into a part of the first world that believes that Donald Trump is running the car into the Grand Canyon, and there's not a lot we can do about it.
I like this.
I keep getting closer.
This is the limit right here, and then no more.
No more. You're here in Holland filming for your travel program.
Yes.
The 3rd season already. Before we get to that, last weekend in the States was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
An attack on the president.
Which it is every week now. I mean, that's the news cycle in the United States now.
But even in the crazy news cycle, this was like extreme.
Yeah.
An attack on the president at the correspondents' dinner.
Yeah.
Now, the president and Melania want Jimmy Kimmel, your colleague, fired.
Yeah.
What do you make of all this, Conan?
So here's the list of things that we agree is real, and then Conan responds to the list of things that we agree is real. Donald Trump is an actor who's an agent who's doing his own thing, and people follow his orders. We're in a war with Iran. Somebody tried to kill him by running through the hotel lobby with a gun, and it was just an American guy who told everybody before he did it. And he brought knives along too, I guess, because, no tactical outfit is complete without a knife. I mean, there's so many things going on, and they just accept it as real because that's the news cycle today in America. That's the way social media works, and they're going to agree.
One thing I will say is that the president is saying that Jimmy Kimmel said something, hateful. And what I would say is I think there's a lot of angry rhetoric on all sides. I think that's one of the problems in the United States. And one of the things that I
don't think angry rhetoric is the problem. I think lying is the problem. And I think that's the issue we have here, is that nobody is willing to tell the difference between or try to discern between lying and telling the truth. We are okay with lying, and instead we have resorted to being less specific. It's just hateful rhetoric. I don't like hateful rhetoric. So it has nothing to do with truth. I don't know, LeBron James whines too much is not hateful rhetoric. It's telling the truth. If I say LeBron James sucks because he whines too much and because he actually doesn't do anything anymore, but people keep glazing him and make it seem like he's the greatest player ever when he should have retired a long time ago. And the only reason probably he's able to compete is because he's got some secret pharmacological advantage or some other shit. I don't know. But that's not hateful rhetoric if it would really be true. And it shouldn't bother anybody. You should still say it's either true or it's a lie. It's not hateful rhetoric. If I'm lying about LeBron James and LeBron James isn't taking anything, but he's just a really good guy and nobody's lying about him, he's just really scoring points, then it would be hateful rhetoric, but it would be lying, which is actually more precise because it reveals why it's wrong. Hateful rhetoric? What's wrong with hateful rhetoric if it's got to do with ticks? What's wrong with hateful rhetoric if it's got to do with the 3 dogs that live behind your house that bark all night? What is wrong with hateful rhetoric if it's appropriate? But of course, saying that there's a bunch of hateful rhetoric just means basically is that we shouldn't say things that are too harsh. We shouldn't use harsh language or something. And that's just dumb. We should stop lying. We should start telling the truth to our kids and to our citizens.
The reasons that I've spent so much time and effort pursuing comedy that's about people, about situations, human things, those are the things that make me happy. There's just a lot of anger on both sides, on the left, on the right. And, political violence, sadly, is a big part of our country's history. And it's a problem. It's very, very toxic.
Are you scared
right now? Am I scared? I'm scared of him.
Rightly so.
Yeah. I don't fear so much for myself, I guess, but I think I have kids, I have a family. I think we're all worried. We want things to calm down in our country as much as possible. So that's what I hope for. And I hope we can find some common ground. Yeah. That would be lovely. And I say that to all sides.
You're here for your show, Conan O'Brien Must Go. It's a show where fans from all over the world invite you to come visit them, and you just do it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, what happens is people contact me through my podcast from everywhere,
questions.
And then they ask me questions, and then I surprise them in their country, and I get involved in their lives.
And change their lives. Have a look.
Once a proud talk show host, he has been driven by a changing ecosystem to a drier and harsher climate. The weekly podcast. Unhinged by
Of course, that's already kind of ironic, right? That he's admitting it, right? That even this guy has a podcast now, and that's, I guess, just supposed to be normal. Even though he has no expertise to share, it's going to be just a funny podcast, which is totally okay. I think we need funny podcasts.
The feral scent of their mild enthusiasm. He scavenges in distant lands, fueled by a bottomless hunger for recognition.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. When in New Zealand, you have to haka. What's your first impression when I come up to you?
I don't want to lie.
Try this.
Not bad.
You can lie a little. How about a little? You already did. You say tango or dongo? Tango, right?
It's tango.
It's not tango. These people live here. Yeah.
It's not a traditional travel program about the country and the facts of the food. What is it really about, Conan?
I think my goal in many travel shows, we've all watched travel shows, and there are a lot of them, and they try to teach you about the country. I want you, at the end of my program, to know nothing about the country. I want you to maybe even be dumber than you were at the start of the show.
Okay, so if you don't want them to know anything about the country, then what do you want them to know? What do you want them to come away with?
My goal is I like to go to countries and have the joke be on me. So today,
the joke on him as an American traveler. The joke is on him as an American. Listen carefully.
One of my fans is a high fashion model here in Amsterdam, and she said she could teach me how to be a male model. And so I showed up. I met with her, and she told me at the end of the program, this isn't going to work. She was very disappointed in me and my appearance and the way I behaved. But I want people to watch and laugh at me. I want to be an American who's out in the world showing people that we have a sense of humor about ourselves. And I like to be in situations where I'm not the boss, where I'm down here. And for example, while I'm here in Amsterdam, people are here, and I'm the one that has to learn their traditions, and I fail, and they laugh at me.
So that's a really interesting formula for, a show about Americans. A very interesting formula that's not about going around the world and representing America as a thoughtful, insightful, humorous, but just as a buffoon. Think about the possibilities here. He's just decided, I'm going to do it this way.
Seems like there's no limit to the degree that you're willing to embarrass yourself to be funny.
That's the root.
There's no limit to the degree that he's willing to embarrass himself to discredit the idea of America, because that's what he's being paid to do.
That's the rudest thing.
No, I admire
any host has ever said to me.
This is an intervention.
Thank you for being here, by the way.
I'm saying this with love, because I think that's one of the most charming and funniest things a human being can have.
Yeah.
A sense of laughing at yourself and be willing to go the mile, to be unattractive, to be funny.
Yeah,
is like the highest
excuse
thing.
me, I didn't say unattractive.
Okay.
You said unattractive.
I'll retract that.
I feel very unwelcome in this country. No, I say with all honesty that I do like that. I find myself a ridiculous person, and I like to. There are many different types of comedian, and I think if you boiled it down, I would probably very simply be a clown.
That's okay, and I don't have any problem with that. We need clowns. I have a little bit of a clown inside of me, but right now I'm not in the mood for clowning. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's so critical. I think it's so critical that you share the dates of this course, that you try to be in a position that you can have as many people as possible paying attention to it. I will distribute the link when we are closer to the dates, and I hope that you will have the wherewithal to start assembling a list of emails that you're already going to share with them this monumental occasion, this so important that this biology course reach as many high school biology teachers as possible, as many high school biology students, as many first and second year medical students or first and second year biology students in university as possible. And I will be doing everything that I can to achieve that as well, including local advertising on telephone poles about it, because there are a lot of college students in Pittsburgh, and so there's no reason why we can't pack this room. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gigaohm Biological. And many years ago, I was already able to say things that no one else in this space was able to say. Like endemicity is a myth as both a process and an endpoint. Saying a sentence like this out loud in the presence of somebody like Kevin McKernan or Jessica Rose or even Charles Rixey or Mary Talley Bowden should put them in a place where they're simply speechless, because their script does not cover these kinds of concepts and does not cover their existence. The existence of concepts based on nothing, like endemicity or vaccination and vaccinology, or even the idea that an infinitely complex background has been oversimplified by the use of PCR testing as a high-fidelity diagnostic, and using their tests to find their ghosts does not make their ghosts real, nor does it make you a ghostbuster. No one ever has said something as clever as that with regard to the PCR test, and nobody purporting to save us from the illusion has ever adopted language similar, and that is because they are scripted not to win. The most diabolical part of this is the population pyramid, because, ladies and gentlemen, since 1990, the pandemic, in the form of an increase in all-cause mortality, has been visible, and these people have seen it coming. They've watched it coming, and they've put people in place to make sure that the narrative around how it would be managed could be intimately controlled by podcast actors. From Amy Goodman all the way to Tim Pool. It was sculpted using murder and lies, ladies and gentlemen, and an anticipated rise in all-cause mortality. And any podcast actor that you are following will most assuredly have never shown you a list of how they did it, because showing you a list would be not in their script. I am the only one on the entire internet in the free world that has tried to assemble and verify a list which can explain the management of the expected rise in all-cause mortality without needing a virus, without needing to even mention remdesivir, even though it's part of it. Remdesivir is a red herring because it is supplementary oxygen that leads to ARDS, which was attributed to COVID, which leads to viral pneumonia, which is attributed to COVID, instead of toxic supplementary oxygen. It's 60 liters a minute, right, Kyle Seidel? And so this is for all the marbles. That's why there's a fake anti-vax movement that even has a former 15-year-plus employee of the Department of Energy that used to transform and transfect plants to make medicines, named Brian Hooker, who claims to be part of it. The way to see through it is to realize that Soph and her mom, Sasha Latipova, are directly connected to Robert Malone and Asim Malhotra and Meryl Nass and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and CHD and Epoch Times and Redacted News and all the other places, including, of course, Mike Eden, who still promotes her to this day. And this discredits all of them because Soph was collaborating to form this little Wonder Twin powers activate in the form of anti-American clowns on the internet already in 2019, where she played Minecraft and listened to Nick Fuentes explain his strategy for why he went into media as part of politics. And she is also building an automated rainbow Israeli flag in this video, but you know, whatever. Another way to see through it is this fake health freedom movement that has culminated in having multiple foreign actors in very powerful and consequential positions inside of Health and Human Services Secretary under the Truman Show victim Robert F. Kennedy Jr., including Marty McCary, who just resigned, Vinay Prasad, who resigned, and frickin' Jayanta Bhattacharya, who's still there at the head of NIH, one of the largest budgets of the American government. It is preposterous that that guy is there. It is preposterous that I met him 3 times at Broken Science meetings where he told me to stop talking about Robert Malone unless it is all one malevolent show that is full of traitors against America. Traitors against America like the intellectual dark web funded by Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and all these other clowns. The Weinstein brothers, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, the gay boys at the end of the table, Rubin and Shapiro. These are all imposters on an anti-American script. You could see them as the black and white tiles of a floor that you should have never crossed. How's that for an analogy? They are the black and white tiles of a floor you should have never walked across in the first place. And now you're stuck on the dance floor, and there's nowhere to put your feet. All you can do is log off and delete. Holy cow, that even rhymed.
Hey guys, it's ZDoggMD, VP MD, Vinay Prasad, Marty McCary.
3 M's.
3 M's.
Good to see you guys.
Dude, we're the 3 horsemen.
It's really hard not to see it now, isn't it? It's really, really, really hard not to be able to see it now. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I have the feeling that this is much crazier than you thought it would be. I really think everybody, it's probably a lot crazier than you thought it would be. Don't forget, for example, that some of these podcasters, like, I don't know, Sayer G, was promoted inside of the Exosome Media Group. What's that? And then also on Morning Edition, just like Lee Merritt was promoted on NPR. The former Pfizer guy, remember he first said that it was a novel virus, but it'll have overlapping immunity with previous viruses. And now he says that pandemics and contagion aren't real. And you should follow Soph's mom about this stuff. And what's interesting, of course, is that Soph means that this is all bullshit. Of course, the other person that promotes Sasha regularly as a bad guy is Robert Malone and his wife, and they did Substacks where they mentioned Sasha, because somebody showed up in Hawaii and interrupted their little talk or something like that. Substack is not real. Social media is not real. It's a trap for your mind. And the way that you can know that Substack is not real is because everybody from Fox News to PBS News to the Pillow guy all say that Substack is a place where the truth is found, just like X is a place where the truth is found. And these people are all national security actors. They are all liars covering this up. You can see it in her own timing. Her daughter is on Alex Jones. Her daughter is working with Laura Loomer. Her daughter is working with Nick Fuentes. And then in 2022, Charles Rixey and Kevin McKernan contact me. In 2022, Mary Talley Bowden and Jessica Rose and Sasha Latipova contact me. Sasha Latipova tells me about Bad Batches and some guy in England. And then a couple months later, she's on stage with Robert Malone and Meryl Nass of CHD and Asim Malhotra, the Indian guy who claims that he accidentally killed his dad with the shot, and now he's speaking out about, statins and stuff. And Michael Palmer, the guy from Doctors for COVID Ethics, one of 2 fraudulent doctors groups that meets on Zoom and makes no progress. Just like the Medical Doctors for COVID Ethics hosted by Covis and Frost. It's just a joke. You can tell people it's murder, you can show them it's murder, and then they don't go anywhere with it. They are liars. And so this is the on-stage performance of Sasha Latipova and Obscene Malhotra. Oh yeah, that's right. Geert Vandenbosch and Jessica Rose and frickin' there's Mike Palmer right there next to Asim Malhotra, and there's Robert Malone. They were all on stage together in January of 2023 saying that this was 5th generation warfare and you'd never figure out who did it. And she was on stage saying that she has a very unique perspective on this, not because she knows everybody, but because she has 5 degrees.
World, full stop. Immunology, computational biology, biochemistry, and molecular biology. Should we have degrees in applied mathematics?
Okay, over the last 3 years, you have been subjected to the most massive, harmonized, globally coordinated propaganda campaign in the history of the Western world. Full stop.
So not only have they admitted it on stage, but they have not left the stage, and that's why they are guilty. And it may be that the reason why they haven't left stage is because of me and Mark alone. Because if they leave stage, then everything that we said about them becomes true. If they stay on stage, then it seems like the theater might still be real. But these are not real people. They are not real people at all. They are traitors to your grandchildren, and the entire earth, the entire first world has been played by these staged actors, or at least all the people in the first world that needed to be played. Podcast actors like these people, like Jessica Rose, like Geert Vandenbosch, like Robert Malone, like Sasha Latipova, like Asim Malhotra, and like Mike Palmer are all scripted frauds. They belong in jail. And of course, after 2023, she would be promoted 3 times by CHD and a couple times by the Epoch Times as an American thought leader. And then her daughter would make a video about shooting Trump. And if you don't believe me, I can show you.
No, I'm not in uniform right now. That's because I'm going undercover. In light of all the recent false flag shootings, you might be wondering, how do I get in on the action, you know? What do I gotta do to be the lucky guy that gets recruited to do something crazy? How do I get on that action? Lucky for you, citizen of the United States, in Biden's Build Back Better bill, because he loves you so much, absconded in the 10,000 pages federal false flag subsidization program. For example, if you're thinking, you know what, maybe I don't have the nerve to do something crazy, we'll give you all the SSRIs and fluoride you need. If you're thinking, where do I get the money for these, fancy guns? Where do you think these, mentally ill McDonald's workers got the money from? In this economy, if you're wondering where to get money from, just go on the internet and say that you're having violent thoughts. All of our boys will swarm in there onto your Venmo account to send you money. Our best Discord groomers to your Discord account to give you all the instruction manuals, the quick rundowns, and everything. Really, we're trying to make this as easy for you as possible, especially if you're a minority, if you're retarded in some way. We have all the affirmative action to get you on your feet. Before you get started, though, we don't want you to injure yourself in any way, at least not yet. You can do that after it's all said and done. Here's a little thing you gotta know about gun safety, first of all, is you want to be waving it in as many directions as possible at all times. Loaded. Check the chamber to make sure there's a bullet in there. Just have fun with it, really. Do it for me. Do it to save the white race. Hey, what's you guys and stuff here? Just getting ready for the Pride Parade. Oh, hey. Didn't see you there. I'm just here getting ready to go to the Pride Parade, considering I'm going to a GSA meet pretty soon. So when you're kind of, playing around with a gun as you do, you should always be playing around with it. You want to keep your finger directly on the trigger so you're always ready in case any sort of homosexual person strolls by. I need to see you holding the gun like this, okay? I want you to take yourself out. The way you gotta do it, you gotta take your gun like so, thusly, and, shoot yourself in the back of the head. So guys, one of the classic ways to make your whole thing more comical is going akimbo. Very impractical.
And so it gets darker.
You wanna make sure really close
It gets very much darker if you realize that means that that's who he's promoting. That's who Mike Eden has been scripted to promote. Somebody who thought that would be appropriate. And it gets much darker because there are much darker videos of Soph when she's much younger, presumably when she still had the same mom.
the media operation is not an end in itself.
And so a single data point can discredit him. But listen to Mike Eden himself.
I accidentally got mixed up in a couple of groups. Let me think. There was early on, Dr. Peter McCulloch and others, Pierre Corey, were pushing early treatment for COVID-19.
Okay, so here we go. This is a stage actor arguing with or purporting to out other stage actors. And now he's going to say something really simple. Peter McCulloch and Pierre Corey are frauds because they were arguing for early treatment. But if there's not a real contagion, then there's no need for early treatment. So I guess I got caught up in things. See how weak that is? He's only going to tell you that there are other people out there, but he's not going to mention anybody that's not already on his team. That's how this works.
And of course, I was reasonably enthusiastic early on because I thought I'm decent at pharmacotherapeutics. I can help you pick things. And of course, it took a while before I realized, well, there wasn't a bloody code. It wasn't a new syndrome. There was no unique collection of signs and symptoms that would justify people claiming there was a new illness. I'm absolutely clear now. I'm not saying there definitely isn't anything called COVID.
Now, if he really believes this, then the opioid epidemic in America would be the ultimate in edifying evidence, because he would say that why doesn't anybody in America admit that, 750,000 people were killed by opioids in the last 7 years, and so the drop in life expectancy had nothing to do with the novel virus. Yet all of these people, including the current NIH director and the current HHS secretary, doesn't seem to figure it out. So that would be a way for him to further prove that he's right, but he never says it. Isn't that kind of strange? He could also use the argument that population pyramids that are heavy on the top, where there's a lot of old people that are retiring, are a very big burden on the economic system from which they emerge. And so one of the things they might wanted to do was manage that problem. And an excuse to manage that problem would be a new respiratory illness that nobody knew to do anything about. So also, he can't protect his own population by saying that the population pyramid is a problem in need of management. So two really big, edifying, potential possible things for him to add to his story, both of which he's heard from me multiple times and heard from multiple of my viewers multiple times, and yet he still says, I don't want to argue about contagion anymore, just follow Sasha Latapova.
COVID-19. Some people might have been poisoned, in punctate poisonings, who knows?
Some people might have been poisoned in a punctate kind of way. What about opioids on the street? Is that a way of poisoning people? Not according to Mike Eden. That is something you do not need to hear about, because he is a scripted traitor to America, and that's why, as a foreigner, he doesn't feel bad.
But it wasn't a new illness, I've got explanations for when people they explode and go, well, I was iller than I've ever been before. It's like, yes, is that?
The conclusion is that Mike Eden was in on it. They put scripted acolytes on social media and imposed on unsuspecting populations incorrect working assumptions. And they're doing it right now about the Iran war, and about fertilizer, and about fuel prices, and about stock prices. And these spreads of bad ideas is happening on social media. And it is infinitely more dangerous than the spread of an RNA molecule. And this slide is so old it should annoy you. But that's how long I've been right. And when you're right, you don't really have to change your message too much. Just like when the knife is sharp, you don't really have to sharpen it. You just have to use it correctly. Ladies and gentlemen, they lied about a background signal, and it was available in a form of a population pyramid. And they put people in place to lie about it, and they still don't understand it because they don't use frickin' population pyramids.
Because we have a 20-year lag. So even if everyone right now had kids, their birth rate's below. That's why they're bringing in 1 million Indian and African refugees. The prediction is with population collapse to eat food and starts buying from grocery stores. But pending some variable I can't see, which is incredibly likely to happen, meaning I'm probably wrong, the prediction is with population collapse will come a total economic disaster on every level.
Isn't that happening in Japan, the population?
That's why they're bringing in 1 million Indian and African refugees, desperately trying to create customers for their businesses. And what have we seen? Horrifyingly, tons of stories of crime and rape popping up in Japan.
Right.
Well, what are you doing? You have no kids. Their birth rate's below 1.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, we're cooked.
So we have to have more kids, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's you need to have more kids, but there's nothing you can do because we have a 20-year lag. So even if everyone...
It's a 20-year lag. You can see it right there in the population pyramid. This is 34-year-olds at that bump right there. So they're running out of college students. They're running out of elementary students. They're running out of customers. They're running out of taxpayers. And none of these jobs that these kids are going to get when they're 20 or 30 are going to pay like the boomers paid. I'm not going to be able to get a $10,000 a month consulting gig. You're not going to be able to get one of those ever again. You're not going to get a marketing job. And so the point is that this is real and it can be seen coming. And they have put population pyramid bullshitters in place to never use the graph and show you. Because if they show you the graph, if they show you the graph, how do I do this?
If they show you the graph of the population pyramid, you will realize that they saw it coming. That's why they can't show it to you.
If everyone right now had 2 kids, every Gen Z. So millennials are aging out of being able to have kids, which is kind of wild if you think about it.
Yeah.
The oldest millennials are in their early 40s.
Fucking old.
So this means that millennial women are not going to have kids soon. In fact, a 35-year-old woman who gets pregnant, it's called a geriatric pregnancy.
Oh my God. They're talking
so
about
right
that
now,
right there.
Gen Z.
They're talking about these people right there.
If every single one of them had 2 kids, then Generation Bravo, they're calling it, because nobody wants to say beta.
And of course, the most important thing to remember is what Mark said, that a country that doesn't have a population pyramid like this will be stronger in the long term. Maybe even dominant in the long term. And that's why they can see it coming. They are mitigating. They are managing. Oh, yeah. And by the way, here's Roseanne Barr.
I've heard from so many people who experienced post-COVID back side effects, some in my family, and the stories are heartbreaking. One woman told me that after getting the jab and then a booster, she was never the same. She said her whole body felt like it was burning from the inside out, and she couldn't eat. She was exhausted and in pain, and no one in the medical system had any answers for her. Stories like that show just how isolating, how scary it can be, which is why I want to tell you about the wellness company's Ultimate Spike Detox. Developed by Dr. Peter McCullough, this doctor-formulated blend is designed to help your body clear spike proteins while also supporting your immune system, heart, and brain. It combines...
I mean, why have a gun in the background? Why have a bottle of barred wine in the background? What in the hell is going on here other than the discrediting of America and the parody of Americans?
And 7 natural ingredients. Nattokinase to help break down spike protein, bromelain to support immune health, and turmeric with black pepper to reduce inflammation and repair cells. If you or someone you love is still suffering, don't wait. Go to twc.health/RB and use code RB for 10% off plus free shipping.
Would be, if it was replacement, you'd have 80 million. But that's not going to make up for the deficit among Gen Alpha. Okay. So we're still looking at a 40 million person deficit. This would mean that no matter what happens, Gen Alpha is about to enter the workforce at 15 years old in the next few years. The boomers are at what's called the mortality shelf. The oldest boomers are 79. That's mortality. Yeah. What we're expecting to see right now, there's about 60 some odd million boomers, 20 to 40 million deaths in the next 10 years. A massive portion of the market will disappear. Customers will disappear. And these are the ones who hold property
and own corporate equities.
We have all the money.
Indeed. And purchasing power.
Yeah.
So people rely on boomers right now largely because they're the ones buying.
And so what they are doing is vacuuming up all the assets and all the money and all the retirement money and all the everything that these people have amassed, and make sure that these kids don't inherit it, that these kids don't have it, that those boomers spend it. Just like they made sure that all the boomers' kids attended college. But now we don't need those colleges anymore because there aren't as many kids. So those colleges will slowly disappear and compete for the remaining kids. It's going to get ugly in America, ladies and gentlemen, and they know it.
Buying stuff. When they leave, we will not get a comparable replacement with Gen Alpha. The economy will take a hit, and there's nothing that can be done about it. Humans will survive. I'm not saying that it's going to be the end of the world. It just means that the luxuries that millennials grew up with will be gone, and Gen Alpha is going to be like, this sucks. And the joke is you're going to be able to say, you know, when I was your age, we could watch any show we wanted at any point. I'm like, really? Yeah. I wish we could afford a TV these days, but a TV goes for $20,000, so only really rich people have them. Seems like we're heading back to...
So it's like he's excited about it. It's like he's very happy about it, or it's like he's been scripted to say that this is what's going to happen and be very certain about it. And if you watch him on a nightly basis, it really does seem like that's the case. Now, Tim Pool's an interesting dude because I think he, like other people, has been scripted for a very long time. And I think it's becoming obvious because, again, they weren't intended to be on stage for this long, for this an important of a message. And so hiding this important of a message, hiding this kind of data, hiding this list of ways that people were murdered and lied about is very difficult going into 2026. You can see how old this slide is.
But you can tell if someone's lying. You know, you can sort of feel it.
I think I hear a drone, which would make me
and I have
very
lied.
excited.
I'm sure I'll lie again.
So what we have here is a history in America of a sabotage of any skepticism of the vaccine schedule in America, and sabotage by scripted actors that include Suzanne Humphreys and her co-author, include Mary Holland and Brian Hooker, and include longtime colleague and former anthrax vaccine spokesperson Meryl Nass. It includes the stooge Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has been used and controlled by the American government since his father was killed. It includes Joe Rogan and Alex Jones, because those two are clowns that just wanted to be stars. It includes all of these people. They're all on the same bullshit script, and they are traitors to our grandchildren, and I would love to be put in a position where I could testify and do something about it. These two are on script, but what's very interesting is what was admitted on the Tim Pool show yesterday night when Brett Weinstein went on the show. It is freaking remarkable.
Don't forget to smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we have Brett Weinstein.
Very excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Who are you? What do you do?
Oh, I'm an evolutionary biologist. I taught for 14 years at the Evergreen State College. Actually, you and I...
We did a little documentary about it.
You did a documentary on it, yeah.
So I never knew who filmed the documentary about Brett Weinstein's terrible tragedy at Evergreen, but surprise, surprise, it turns out to be Vice reporter Tim Pool. And after all these years, I finally put it together that it's all one freaking bullshit show and one bullshit narrative full of bullshit recruited bullshitters. And thank you very much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. This stream is in memory of Brandy Vaughn and my friend Nathan Breen. I hope someday to bring justice to their stories and put them in the proper place in history, along with all these other people. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you will be in person or virtually present for the August show. You're going to see a lot more of me, I promise. I'm getting back to work. It's about to rain, so I might try and get some stuff inside and take advantage of the timing of this. Thank you very much for being here, and I will see you again tomorrow, and that's a promise you can probably count. I don't see why I won't be here because I'm ready to go already. Thanks very much.
I have been podcasting.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon. We will see you again very soon. money for nothing. That's what these people, money for lying. That's what they're doing, baby. Money for lying. Houstonic Live, you've been killing it for days, so I owed you one. Thank you, sir, for being here, and thank you for being my friend.
way you do it. You play the guitar on the MTV. That ain't working, that's the way you do it. Money for nothing and your chicks for free. Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Let me tell you, damn guys ain't dumb. Maybe get a blister on your little finger. Maybe get a blister on your thumb. We got to install microwave ovens, custom kitchen deliveries. We got to move these refrigerators. We got to move these color TVs. To the little faggot with the earring and the makeup. Yeah, buddy, that's his own hair. The little faggot got his own jet airplane. The little faggot, he's a millionaire. We got to install microwave oven, custom kitchen deliveries. We got to move these refrigerators. We got to move these color TVs. Move on, move on. I should have learned to play them drums. Look at that mama, she got it sticking in the cameraman. We could have some. And he's up there. What's that? Hawaiian noises. He's banging on the bongos like a chimpanzee. Oh, that ain't working. That's the way you do it. Get your money for nothing. Get your chicks for free. We got to install microwave oven, custom kitchen deliveries. We got to move these refrigerators. We got to move these color TVs. Listen here, now, that ain't working. That's the way you do it. You play the guitar on your MTV. That ain't working. That's the way you do it. Money for nothing and your chicks for free.
And then there are people who have inspired a lot of thought for me. People like JJCouey, you know, who's regarded by a few people by some people as sort of this kind of savant or idiot or something that whose ideas are just too terrible and too incompatible with the biology that they learned. And in many ways, they are.